Welcome to the Weird Things Nightmare.
Oh, it does kind of sound like the Unsolved Mystery themes.
I was thinking like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that too. That drop.
Happy Monday, everybody.
Man, it is a happy Monday. I'm
is.
feeling it. You ever have those days where you're feeling it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feeling
I'm
it, Mr. Krabs?
I'm feeling it.
Feeling
Can
it.
you feel it, Mr. Krabs?
Oh, and then there you got Justin Robert Young. Hello.
Oh.
Yo.
All the feels, Mr. Young. That sounds like an album name. All the feels, Mr. Young.
My favorite Beatles album.
Yeah.
Dude, this last I don't think I've ever done this in the pre-show. Is hype a impending next day release from Stephen Cogswell?
Oh,
But
yeah.
hot damn! This is a tight jam he's got coming out.
Oh, is it good? I haven't heard it yet.
Oh, really?
I'm excited.
No, I loved it.
No, he's the best. I mean, what else are you gonna say about the man? It's
Well,
fucking
what I loved is that he sent us two of them, and one of them it just says vocals by Brian Brescia and Justin Robert Young. The other one is your rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, and it says
Oh, it's Fergie's rendition.
as performed by Justin Robert Young. But this time he uses quotes around the word vocals by Justin Robert Young.
Yeah, we're playing the audio. Fergie singing it, belting it out.
How's everyone doing on this Monday?
Delightful.
Pretty great.
Great. Pretty good Monday.
Yeah, man. No, pretty good. Had a good little politics chat. Now we're ready to move into the weird things, and then.
Oh man, I'm getting some weird distortions. Do you have some?
Yeah, wait. I think I had the Kyle mic on.
Yeah, it's off now. Yeah, how's Are they still doing this politics? Politics still happening?
Politics still happening?
They are. Turns out, man, they're everywhere. These guys, there's mucking about and making a whole mess of everything, and we all gotta clean it up.
One day.
The government.
One of these days.
All right. I think I'm good on my side.
Well, somebody's pretty proud of themselves.
Oh my goodness. Well then.
I'm Bryce, and I pressed all the right switches.
I'm just telling you I'm ready for this whenever you are.
Is that a hint? Am I supposed to do something here? All right, hold on.
I'm just saying, whenever you're ready, I'm also ready.
Fine, it's on me. Let me just get rid of this window. All right, pull up my show notes. Work on Brian's self-esteem, lower it. Okay, got it. Oh, sorry. Right. You guys ready?
Man, I got to talk.
No?
I got to talking to So I've been really excited about working out with the trainer and stuff, and we finally have hit the point 3 months in where it's like we're seeing evening off of certain
plateau?
numbers,
Yeah.
and then Al came and like, show me your food logs, and I was like, ah, and then down you go, and it's just like, Brian. So now I gotta get back on that leafy green train.
Could be worse, Brian. I have my trainer uses let me see if I got
Whip scars?
does cupping to pull the fascia away from the muscle.
What?
So I I have a feeling it's not really therapeutic. It's more like punitive.
You know what? That just, there's a how do you pronounce the In a Nutshell channel? Kurzagat?
I don't know. Kyrgyzstan?
No. You guys. Somebody will put it in the chat. But there's
It's a YouTube channel?
Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst, in a nutshell. The good news, in a nutshell, homeopathy you could put on there. Kurzgask. Have you guys ever watched these videos?
Mm-mm.
Oh, they're fantastic. They're wonderful. They're beautiful 5-minute essays about from a science and skepticism point of view that takes a big complex topic and yes, reduces it down to understandable bite-sized parts, but he does an amazing job of making you understand the other side. Like homeopathy, he was able to flatly state that no, it's based on nonsense and it doesn't work, and yet spend half the video talking about clearly there's something that homeopathy is doing righter than traditional Western medicine. And what is that? And basically it's like the reason people go to homeopaths is because they get treated differently. The customer service experience is superior. You get listened to for 2 to 3 hours at a time. And that's something that traditional medicine is not doing. So maybe to go through that journey and feel like, well, I don't know, maybe there is some really important stuff we can learn from homeopathy is something that if you told me 3 years ago, I'd be nodding my head in agreement with. I don't think I would have done that before having watched this.
Well, that's, that was kind of back in the days of working at the JRF. That's one of the cases we talked about. Is it like when your product is completely crap, when your product kills your patients, you better have the best customer service in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it's like, yes, it's like you go to these different kind of therapies and they're like, oh, I'm not doing cupping for like toxins. It's done like you can be used. The different method is to use it to pull the fascia and the muscle from each other. So, but that's a different, as far as it was explained to me, because he pulls out that, I'm like, oh, this mumbo jumbo.
Well, and again, it's like and even Penn Jillette, halfway through his incredible 100-pound weight loss, he said on the air, I am quite certain that 50% of what I'm doing is total bullshit. I just don't know which 50%. And so as a result, it's like, all I know is that if I do all of this, I'm going to come out the other side in a better place.
Yeah, the thing that we've, and just since we're on this tangent, is that the thing that I've always tried to make it very clear, like we talked about, like we're working in the jail for years. I'd get phone calls from family members that lost people who got, took up alternative remedies instead of, conventional treatments and stuff. Is one, it's like, listen, if it's called alternative, it means it ain't been tested. That's, keep in mind. Right. But all treatments start off not being tested. So, but if it's been tested and it falls flat, you should be wary. But most of all, the concerning thing is when people say, I'm going to do this instead of, and that is the thing that terrifies me, is that when people are like, I'm going to try this instead. It's like the thing that's been proven, that's been demonstrated, never been shown to work. And that's scary.
And it's not an exaggeration to say that that the world, everything I've read indicates we lost Steve Jobs due to that kind of thinking.
Waiting. Yeah.
I mean, effective conventional medicine techniques were not chosen in favor of what was a promised miracle cure.
Yeah, it's hard to know. There may have been. Yeah, I mean, we don't. It is. The whole medical system is frustrating and stuff. I have this weird skin thing where, like, I have some sort of allergic reaction where, I don't have hair on my arms and my legs. And I've gone to like 3 different dermatologists to try to get. Finally, I found what I think is being able to tell me what's going on. But other ones confidently told me, we think it's this, but we don't really know. And that was sort of the end of it. You're like, oh, okay.
Oh, golly.
I went through this. My chin quiver. I had to go through 3 neurologists before I finally found someone who knew what was going on and could take care of it.
Wow.
And if you go to one doctor, you're like, oh, okay. And that's why you hear people say, get 3 opinions. And that's not effective for a lot of people. That's not a cost-effective thing to do. Right. So, and that's the, and the problem.
That's the way the news goes.
The concept of placebo is just interesting because it is this sort of they get called the sort of magical sort of thing in some regard, but how your outlook and approach on things affects things dramatically. If you're depressed and you're feeling the worst in the world, your immune system's suppressed and things like this. But we want to attribute these magical properties to stuff, and scary. We just got to fix it all. Fix it all.
Yeah, fix everything. Fix everything.
Yeah.
One day we will.
Oh.
Or some of it. Well, Justin just walked away.
Yeah, it's like enough of this.
He was like, I don't give
He
a crap.
said-
I love homeopathy. I'm Justin Robert Young, and I love homeopathy.
I'm Justin Homeopathy Young. It's a new character. I'm angry.
I want my wheatgrass, and I want to be talked to.
He lives in Oakland. He's looking outside for the Black Panthers flying ship.
Oh,
Keeps
hey,
hoping he's going to see it.
do you mind if I plug this into charge during the show?
I mean,
Now it's just you
your
and me,
house.
Bryce.
what's up? Welcome to the
Yeah.
two things. Oh no, and Andrew left too. Hey, there he is.
The one time I couldn't count on you two chuckleheads going for like a minute and a half longer.
All right.
I'm feeling it.
Oh wait, no. You guys ready? You ready?
Mm.
All right, take it away in 3. Out.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by the bearded Justin Robert Young,
Oh, hello, friends.
the bearded Brian Brushwood,
I feel like you got to put air quotes around my beard in relation to Justin Robert Young's, but that's fine. I'll take air quotes bearded.
Brian, you're the guy that went to go work on the sea vessel, the going out to sea, the sea captain,
I'm the
helper.
innocent kid who comes back slightly edged,
Yeah.
but still not full bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. You had a beard because you had to grow a beard, but that.
Yeah.
And also, I'm Andrew Main, and of course, joining us as always is our producer extraordinaire, the clean-shaven Bryce Castillo.
Hi.
Ah.
I haven't shaved in like a day. And
The
so I'm
beards
starting
and
to
the
get-
babies.
I'm
fight.
getting my 24-hour shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long does it take for you to get a measurable shadow? Have
It's like-
you ever considered growing any facial hair?
I did remember when I moved down here. I was for like a while. But now it'll take like 36 hours or so for a little bit of a shadow.
I don't know.
I
I
try to
smell a
keep
night
pretty-
attack bit.
Oh, God. Oh.
Give
we
Bryce
could do
a
a race.
beard.
Do you know when I shaved last?
When?
Maybe Friday.
Oh my
Wow.
god!
And you look like you just shaved yesterday. Wow.
But you're probably you're at that good middle definition. You're at whatever you have on your face is just enough to make the lines clearer on your face.
Yeah, clear
Yeah,
lines.
Andrew,
No
Andrew
blurred.
grows facial hair in a way that you would actually style facial hair. Like that's the thing is he just grows this perfect. Like I just have this gigantic thicket that
I don't waste it
emerges.
here. I just grow here, and I'm done. I'm just.
Yeah. Oh, and it actually conforms to the time. Like when Mambo number 5 was going, he just had the one little thin mustache.
That's what I want to see a Bryce grow. It's just a pencil thin villain mustache.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
So, yeah, I remember I didn't know that I couldn't grow the sides until like I was like working on like a TV shoot, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you just grow it out a bit?" I'm like, "Okay." A week later, I'm like, "Huh." Funny thing.
Is that demo photo, the promo photo for Don't Trust Andrew Maid, is that the hairiest you've ever been? Because it's just the slightest little.
Oh, so that no, it's not that I've gotten some book modes where I've gotten a little shaggier, but that was I had a trimmer set to that, and so that was the designated length.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
that was-
don't let him lie to you. That was full CGI. They had to put a mustache on him like Superman.
Or the reverse Superman.
Yeah, they had to reverse Superman him.
Yeah, that was ones they shot in the middle of production, like they had a photographer show up like in the middle, like doing a bunch of stuff that like, oh, come this way, we're gonna grab some photos. So, gentlemen, we've got a reader response.
What?
Yes, a listener response apparently. Listener wrote in.
I'm sure they read too. I mean, if they wrote a response, they're literate.
Yes. So this is from Daddy Otho. I hear you guys drone on and on about VR and problems with it, etc. You've done 2 stories in the past last year or so that would have solved this problem. The first was the tens where the lady reporter went to the police shootout simulator and did crappy. Then they hooked you up to leads to her forehead, and she damn near aced it. The second story is that the blind guy hadn't seen his wife since they've been married for like 20 years. They tapped into his ocular nerves and were able to let him see her. I believe this comment was, we still got some work to do on this. Surely by now, they ought to take the two and merge them with current software and technology, stick an implant somewhere, and you experience VR anytime you want.
Can I take a stab at an initial reaction to this? There's an availability misplaced heuristic happening in that one. Most of the stuff we're talking about is commercially available, mass scale, affordable stuff, but it's being combined in this letter with advanced, highly speculative, incredibly, insanely expensive, yet to be tested solutions. And I think it's the right impulse, but the wrong time. I think this is a 5 to 10 years from now solution.
Yeah, I mean, that is the direction. That's the goal. The goal is, or one pathway is like the neural lace, which is a company, a technology being worked on to basically put a thing in your head that allows you to have this sort of full access. These things are still at their early infancy phase, and the problem, like a lot of people have with technology, is understanding that you have to go through these several steps to get to this other point. If you want to have why don't we just build faster microprocessors? Like, well, we don't know how to make the chip smaller right now. We have ideas in the laboratory, but it'll take a couple of years to figure out how those methods will apply here. Or we don't know where to connect things into the brain or how much sensory input to do this. We need experiments and we need to do this. There's a finite number of people, finite number of companies and researchers working on this problem. And you just have to wait for certain discoveries to come along. A great example of that was like the discovery of the blue laser, the blue diode. This was a thing we knew was theoretically possible, and we knew once you had a blue diode, you had a much smaller wavelength, which meant instead of like pits on CDs that were this big,
the size of a silver dollar, let's imagine.
Yeah, they're like tiny, much, much tinier. So that's where you're able to take something the same size as a CD and all of a sudden have a Blu-ray and increase the data on there, because once you had that shorter wavelength. But that blue diode took a long time to get to, and it took a researcher. What's that?
I had a profound moment because I realized the first time I had read about this problem was, I believe, 20 years ago. Bryce might be able to find the article, but it was in Wired magazine, and the title was True Baru, a play on the fact that L's and R's are challenging to translate from Japanese back, True Baru, and it was talking about the quest, and it had not been solved at the time. It was saying, when we get this, it will change everything, and it did. It quintupled or tenfolded the carrying capacity of a single bit of physical media. Although interestingly, we've now abandoned physical media.
Yeah. I believe it got the Nobel Prize too, from Maruska, the guy who developed it. But anyhow, yeah, it was one of these things where you have to go through an exhaustive list of things to figure out how you're supposed to get from here to there, and you have to at some point sort of say, hey, maybe I don't wait for them to come up with this. Maybe I work on this, or I get into this field, And if you're not an engineer, you're like, oh well. Maybe if it's something you're passionate about, like you're made. It's amazing how many things happen because somebody was peripherally involved. I'm like, why isn't somebody doing this? I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you do that?
So, and also I think that there is, creating a breakthrough in physical disc technology is one thing that has an obvious benefit, specifically at the time that it was being developed, considering what a gigantic leap CDs were to tapes in terms of the profitability for the recording industry. It's another thing when we're looking at what is kind of a controversial sort of concept of trying to find a higher fidelity VR by way of any kind of biomechanical solution beyond putting on a thing in front of your head and having a monitor show you a different world.
And and what the starting point for that right now, like the Neuralace is working on interfaces for people who've lost limbs, is to help amputees, whatever, be able to connect better with electronics, robotics, etc. And that's a great starting point. And then working their way forward to like, can we enable the blind to see, et cetera? But it's just the incremental steps. And is just, if we're just consumers of this stuff, we're just sort of like, where is this? Like, I want my VR glasses that don't have to hook up to a computer and that are self-contained, the full wide field of view, et cetera. And you can sit there and you can look at Moore's law and look at, microprocessor speed development and look at, screen development, how pixel density, whatever. And you can see at what point, we're getting right now, Qualcomm has these new chipsets that are going to make that possible. They've unveiled them now. And we knew probably 2 years ago this was coming now. So this part's going to come now, which means that probably summer or late this year, we're going to see, the standalone stuff that both Oculus and Vive have proposed are going to get a lot better, and other people are going to get into the fray. And probably by, a year from now, these things are going to get even better because we say there are these incremental steps, and at some point it makes this possible. It's like the iPad. Microsoft had the tablet, which was in many ways was like, oh, it's the same, but it didn't have the power density. It didn't have the other things you needed, the display density, the power density, and so it was too soon. Not because it was so great it was too soon, it was because the technology wasn't there yet. Once Apple could fit the battery and the display into that form factor, they said, yep, we're ready to release this thing. They couldn't have done it before. And that's how things work, unless they get a rapid innovation. So electric cars too, like, without the cell phone industry and portables and all that fueling rechargeables and bringing the cost down in that technology there, we still wouldn't have practical electrical cars.
Nope, wrong. I saw a movie about devious.
They buried a electric car. I saw Ed Begley Jr. crying at
Tom Hanks loved his car. Why
it was
did you
fast.
take it away from him?
Oh, there goes the narrative. One narrative we never want to see go away.
What's that,
Andrew?
Andrew?
This show.
Oh my God! You can support the show by going to patreon.com/weirdthings. Oh, also, so I was listening to our friends at the Ice Cream Social, and they got themselves a little vanity URL that just redirects. I would love if we just got a series of vanity URLs that redirected to patreon.com/weirdthings. Because as much as we want to remind people that patreon.com/weirdthings is where you can go to support the show, it would be amazing if we had, like New Bryce Vegas .com. That we could don't go there because we don't own it.
This is revisiting the domain smack idea. Like inject your commentary into the domain that you make sure to use promo code SCAMSchool at checkout to get 15% off.
Well, anyway, don't spend money there yet. Spend money on us. Patreon.com/weirdthings is where you can make sure that this show continues to operate each and every week. We are here for you at your pleasure, and you will get early access to the After Things podcast if you become a Patreon. That is what many people consider to be a real boon. If you are a creator, if you're a maker, if you're somebody who has an entrepreneurial spirit to you or just wants to get more done in your off time, then After Things, I would say, is a must listen. And I say that because I have to listen because I'm on the show, and I think it's a great part of my week. I think it could be a great part of your week as well. Patreon.com/weirdthings. Head on over there right now.
And we will have an After Things today this week, I believe.
Yes.
I think we missed a few weeks on that, but we're back. It's back.
Nobody has a hard out, so we're gonna hard in it to After Things after the show.
Okay, we'll workshop it.
So talking about crazy tech, I got some other kind of crazy tech. I had one story I was going to do, but I'm like, oh wait, I need to do this one. All right, space is cool, right?
Well, space is cool. It's very cool by definition. Some might say it's absolute zero.
All right, Tyson.
I don't know how to respond to that, Brian.
Okay, no, it's not absolute zero. It's absolute zero if you go to the very fringes of it, away from all the stars and all this. Blah, 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 blah.
I will just move on.
Okay.
Brian, your dad joke just hit the atmosphere, just like out of us.
This is like, I've been listening to some cool and it's going to be what Bob one I picks. But listen to this isn't my pick, but relating to Jack Ma about Alibaba, and then another pick I'm going to talk about Jeff Bezos. And one of the things they talk about, like, if what you're doing isn't crazy, then maybe it's not worth doing. And they're talking about, like, so how, doing something that's like super, super crazy. So what they talk about, is, thinking more sensible things like, e-commerce, stuff like that, etc. But how about for space travel, for getting things into space? You've got rockets. We talked about space elevators and stuff. Now we've got a company called Spin Launch.
Spin Launch. Man, this sounds.
It sounds like that by dealing with them, you'll have to deal with a few spin doctors.
I'm blowing the whistle. 2 dad jokes in the same segment. I can't.
Did you say 2 princes?
And if you make another dad joke, well, then we'll stop now.
What is Spin Launch?
Spin Launch is an idea of getting things into orbit or getting things into space, but what they want to do is basically build like a big centrifuge that spins, builds up a tremendous amount of velocity, and then lets this thing fly.
So I'm going to assume this is probably not for human cargo, but if you have robust heart, because keep in mind, all the way back to Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, they mined stuff in on the moon, and then to send it home, they just put it in a giant gun and shot it on out, and it could handle, because it was raw ore. Didn't matter that it was like 20, 30. I'm making up these numbers, G's or whatever. But obviously that doesn't work for humans. But considering how much of what we want to get into space doesn't mind 50, 60 G's or however many it is, that's a brilliant idea. I think there's something to this.
I'm all for exploring it, and like absolutely for hard mass cargo, things like that, we aren't worried about killing people. Absolutely a great idea. And I think and that's one of the things too, is sometimes you'll get people like, oh, well, why don't they do this electromagnetic rail to send people into space? Because if we were 2D people, that would be great. So it's a very interesting idea and I'm glad this company exists. I was just sort of baffled because I read the article on, where was this, TechCrunch, and they're like, insiders say they want to accelerate stuff up to 3,000 miles an hour. I'm like, well, that won't get you into orbit. So, it's one of these things like I want to hear more from them, what they're up to.
So, wait, so 3,000 miles an hour is not enough to get to orbit, huh?
Yeah, orbit, you've got to go, 18,000 miles an hour faster.
Okay. Well, what I'm imagining is, okay, I'm out of my element on this, but I wonder if I don't know, rocket scientists, write us.
What's your question what do you want the rocket scientist to write you?
Well, I can.
It's like hopes and dreams.
No, So you have the gravity well, and let's say you start at 0 at 3,000 miles an hour, right? And you don't have any rocketry giving you an additional boost. Now, yes, when you launch a rocket, you start at 0, and you start off at 1 mile an hour, 5 miles an hour, 600 miles an hour, and you get faster and faster and faster. But that's a case where you have a constant thrust, and the constant thrust is combining with the lack of gravity as you get farther and farther, and the lack of atmospheric drag.
Let's back up. You're even at the International Space Station level, the amount of gravity you have is 99% what we have right here. So you have to get out of the gravity well. Your delta V has to be way more significant. 3,000 delta V you can go up, like a sounding rocket can go 3,000 miles an hour. It'll go up into space, and then it comes back down because it's not going fast enough to
get off the earth. Okay, now I'm understanding what you're saying. So yeah, you could get up there and kiss the sky with Jimi Hendrix, but then you'd have to fall back down.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more. But
then you'd be free falling like Tom Petty.
They've done this math. Like, oh man, we listen to this podcast.
Okay, yeah, no, that helps me wrap my mind around it a little bit better. So how on earth can you even be 3,000 miles an hour in a case where it's like you're gonna have a sonic boom as you whip this thing around on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, you have rail guns and other high velocity projectile systems send things out. I don't know what the rail gun velocity, what the fastest that's ever done. I don't know, but I would imagine that, again, you had one of the first objects that, we may have, like, one of the Nazi cannons may have sent something up. I forget like what the altitude record was. Maybe, I don't know if it hit Kármán line, which is 60 miles up or not, but I mean, we've had high powered guns and stuff. I mean, the bad guys, that, may have been able to do it. I think Iran was trying to build one that could have theoretically, you could build a gun to put something into, it'll hit space, but it won't hit orbit because, again, it's not going to be going fast enough to, do that fall around the Earth thing.
Hey, I got a question, Andrew. This is hugely speculative, and I apologize that it's a bit of a side jag, but I was thinking about, when Felix Baumgartner jumped from a balloon at the edge of space. It just seems like it should be possible with enough balloons. Oh,
edge of space.
Edge of space in air quotes, right? And trademarked by the Red Bull company. It seems like why don't we have a floating platform? Because if you just have enough balloons, you could do the Shield heli pad up there and then launch rockets off of that.
So the answer is it's a thing that's been talked about. There's an entire I have the book somewhere on this. Dark sky platforms are ideas of basically building these platforms, 100,000. It's the spoiler, Station Breaker 3 takes place on one of those.
Okay.
You got to use hydrogen, basically to get the sort of, you have to have the size of your airbags are humongous. In order to carry any sort, you're talking kilometers long, huge, huge, huge. It's a massive, massive project. Not to say that we won't get there. We've got, like Larry Page is building the largest like Zeppelin in the world or largest dirigible in the world. There people are getting towards there, but also when you start getting really high up, you've got to have super thin materials. The Dark Sky Station, that's at JP Aerospace. You've got to have materials that can withstand, how much, the UV and all that there. And it's funny was that I had a friend whose father was a pilot, and his sister was there with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was talking about like, well, Google and Google's working on these airplanes that actually Facebook was working on like this high altitude. I think it was the high altitude airplane that they were going to use for doing internet. Like, oh, and they're gonna go up to like 90,000 feet or 100,000 feet. And my friend's like, yeah, my dad shot him down, explained that can't be done. I'm like, guess you and your dad don't read the news. It's been done. It's done on a regular basis, and it's like, but there's that when Google did Project Loon, putting those balloons up, the guy, one of the biggest balloon experts in the world, the guy that Richard Branson worked with to do his around the world flights, Ballard, I think his name was like, yeah, no, they're not, you can't get these things up for more than a few days, a few weeks. They think they're going to get these things up for months at a time. They just don't know what they're wrong. They don't know what they're doing. Wah, wah, guess what? They did it. Nobody tried. Nobody really tried to make a big effort to do that.
Yeah, I think that's almost like an after things sentiment that the inherent information efficiency of knowing what can and can't be done is limited not by the intelligence of people who are making their guesses, but is limited by the hard data of people dumb enough to throw real resources and money into highly speculative things like, I don't know, relanding rockets, catching fairings as they land in the sea.
And also it is our network of experts, right? And I put experts in air quotes for those of us watching, that sometimes that we have conventional wisdom for a reason, right? So we can it is the basis of science is that we are testing these things to see what our reality is. But oftentimes when it comes to business ventures like this or experiments that aren't exactly of tremendous immediate vital interest in terms of medicine or something, that you just have people like, well, who else are you going to go to, right? Like who else are you going to ask but people that are like, no, you can't really do this, or it doesn't really make sense, or it would cost too much. And so what I think is rad about our current era, and for whatever you want to say about the, current crop of people who are insanely rich and, anywhere between full true altruism and megalomania, are pushing the limits of what we understand about the how cheap it is to do a lot of different things. We're trying. We're just, a lot of stuff is happening, and there's probably more behind the scenes that we don't know about, that are just experiments that are being cast out into the sea to see whether or not they come back.
I think that, on the subject, Brian, you brought up with the floating platforms, I think we're going to see I think we live in an age now where people will fund crazy stuff. That guy at JP Aerospace, he has his whole book, which I read, goes into how to build an airship that goes to orbit, which is an insane idea. And he lays out the idea of massive kilometer-sized inflatable craft using electrical propulsion, maybe some chemical propulsion, taking weeks to basically spiral around and get. And I don't know if that's in Rancho Cordova, where we are right next to our magic distributor, Murphy's Magic Supply, which always. Yeah. And so he lays out his proposal for there, and I don't know how much of this has been really anybody else has independently tried to do the engineering to see if it works. But man, what a crazy idea. What if you could get that to work? You take this dirigible up to a station that's hovering around 130,000 feet off the surface of the Earth. And then from there, you transfer through a enclosed, pressurized cylinder into another vehicle, this huge kilometer-sized craft, sit down. Don't have to sit down. You can just stand there because it moves at such a leisurely pace as it starts to spiral upwards and gradually, like a cruise ship, build up enough velocity until it gets into orbit.
Well, and all of these conversations change about what is and isn't possible when and this is a very weird thing to consider, but we talked about the Peter Diamandis book, Bold, and about how when you build a company nowadays, you build expecting technologies that do not currently exist to come along in time for your stuff to scale. And that's the reason Google is a success, is because they expected the cost of storage to essentially go down to zero, which it did. And Microsoft was a success because they wrote fatty bad code, fatty code, knowing
You're fair.
okay, fatty bad code, knowing that it will work when processors got fast enough to do it, and they were right. And so likewise, there's material developments that it's like you look at it and like there does not exist any material that can make this possible. Therefore, stop thinking about it. And it's like, no, start thinking about it, because we live in an age where materials are being discovered all the time. And the person who has a business plan, the person who has figured out the economic models, the person who's thinking 20 years in the future is going to be the one best positioned, as we've seen with SpaceX.
Yeah, and using them as an example, and one of Elon Musk's favorite thing is you check your base principles, your base assumptions. Like, bring it back to the base assumptions you're there. We can't do it because of X, because you could say, we can't build a warp drive because we don't really know how. There's theoretical things based on theories that have never been proven, so we're not going to go jump into that. But could you build a rocket that's able to land again? And be like, no, you can't do it because it's too heavy. Okay, is there enough energy there? Yeah, but it's too heavy. And then it's like, okay, well, can we build tanks that are lighter? And you're like, no, they tried in the 90s, they couldn't. Wait a second. So if the tanks were light enough and there was a light enough material, you could. And that was a problem in the 90s in the National Space Plane. And then now with graphite tanks, guess what? Problem solved. And that was getting to those, check that, maybe it was figuring out why it wasn't possible. And it was not because it wasn't possible, just you were waiting there. You have to sort of figure out, is it because it's the math doesn't work, or because we just haven't found the right solution?
Yeah, that's one of the things that whenever anybody says we can't do blank, and it's sometimes I say it out loud, but always I say it quiet, is I say yet. Yeah. That can't be done yet. And it's like I almost want to make it a verbal tick whenever I hear that yet.
Somebody want to know, would an ion drive work in the upper atmosphere? Yeah, you can do electrostatic propulsion. You can do it at sea level. Look up lifters. Look up electrostatic lifters. It's basically the same principle. You're just getting a little electrical charge to flee with an ion. So, gentlemen, I got one more story to talk about here.
Before we move on, one of my, just because we're thinking about non-conventional ways to get to orbit, I'm sure there are a million things wrong with it, and I think I described it to you in the past, Andrew, and you told me why it can't happen. But one of my favorite parts of Seven Eves takes place at an unimaginable point in the future where somebody basically rides thermals wearing a wingsuit of some variety up to the point where they encounter what they call bolos. A picture of bolo, you got a center of mass at one end and the other, and it's sort of bolo. Imagine a bolo basically orbiting the Earth that is so big that the bottom part dips down to the tip of the atmosphere while the top part rolls forward, and somebody would ride the thermals all the way up, maybe with some other magic future stuff, and then the idea was you had a 1 minute window when the ball came down, and you just scooped in and you laid down, and then you experience 3 to 5 G's as it whipped you up into the sky. At which point you're now at an orbit basically.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, Stevenson gets his physics, so I'm sure that thing probably would on paper would probably work or something. I forgot what our discussion was about. Yeah, because bolos are another. There are crazy ideas out there like using like whip catapults, bolos, all sorts of other stuff that, you're like, yeah, let's get to that point where we get to try this stuff.
Yeah.
That's they tried tethers were another interesting idea. Actually, they tried a tether experiment with the space shuttle, which was to use a long tether, because the idea is if you have these long tethers that you can have a little momentum here and I'll get a lot of momentum at the other end of it. It could be a great way to sort of whip things into higher orbits and stuff. The problem they had was, and not to say it wasn't a solvable problem, but it was the unexpected problem, was all of the vibrations went back and forth. And remember the Tacoma Narrows Bridge? It's that.
Oh yeah, that's that classic copyright-free 19 footage of the bridge just scarily flopping left and right.
It's got this wind, this sort of steady wind, and it keeps applying enough little force to it, momentum to it, that it just keeps vibrating more and more and more and more, and it has no way to dissipate that. That's why like airplane wings aren't rigid; they flex. It's to get rid of all of that kinetic energy. So the problem they had with the tether was basically that the tether was, oh my God, we're watching this. People are walking away from the bridge, and this bridge is starting to just undulate.
It's like a fun house.
Is that insane? It looks like it's made of Jello. It's terrifying.
Yeah. So anyhow, the problem they had initially with tethers was they would just snap because of all that force would just keep going back in there. But again, they're ways to arrest the dampen to sort of that stress, things like this, use variable lengths. And these are solvable problems, but we just need to go there to go do it. So how about biohacking? You guys, anybody up for some biohacking? Maybe doing a little CRISPR, DNA cocktail here?
I can see no downside to unlimited amounts of us doing biohacking.
Let's biohack it. Biohacking it. We're doing it.
So biohacking is basically, using sort of radically new forms of technology like CRISPR, et cetera, whatever. It doesn't, and not necessarily that, but other things to sort of, change your biology, maybe to cure things, to do that, using do-it-yourself gene editing kits, et cetera, to kind of make this stuff happen. And listen, I think the rate of development, I think that one of the problems we have when it comes to medical stuff is I think that we have a system that is antiquated, that is so risk adverse that it kills people instead of helping heal people. And we need to radically overhaul the way in which we test things and do stuff. And personally, I think if somebody wants to try to, redo their own DNA or whatever, sure. Granted, this is how every sort of zombie scenario begins. I'm all for this. But a prominent biohacker has come forward and said, hey, this is biohacker Hosea Zahner recently told The Atlantic he felt partly responsible for other biohackers' foolhardy experiments. Maybe trying unregulated treatments you saw on the internet isn't the best idea after all.
Oh. So he himself, it doesn't sound like, has experienced any ill effects from his experiment, but by bringing a populist vibe to this movement, he feels responsible for people who will be less responsible than himself.
Yeah, I would say that sounds like a fair assessment of my interpretation of what this is.
Oh my God!
Because you've
Here's
had what
the
happens
quote
is you've
from the
had
article.
people.
When Josiah Zahner watched a biotech CEO drop his pants at a biohacking conference and inject himself with an untested herpes treatment, he realized things had gone off the rails.
Yeah. And that's what's going on. You've got people who are trying these radical treatments. Now, I'll say the other side of it, too, is like, one of the criticism, like, this person who tried their own, anti-HIV, treatment, like, well, this person's living with HIV. And frankly, I understand why they would, think that maybe they want to try something like that, like it's that, some of these people who are doing some of these radical things are people dealing with conditions and dealing with stuff. And it's not like, I'm going to give myself a unicorn head. It's like, it is reckless. It is, to be sure. And I think that, there needs to be a lot more caution there. And I think the problem is there are people who are treating these things like in a pseudoscientific way. They're taking real scientific sort of things and like, well, if I put this thing in here, and kind of ignoring the complexities of that. And I think that's kind of frightening.
Yeah, this is the challenging thing is freedom means the freedom to be stupid. And as stupid as these experiments are, there's a non-zero chance that humanity in the whole will benefit from the stupid things that stupid people are doing unsafely. So it's complicated. I don't know how to feel about it because I don't know. I'm a believer that on balance humanity wins.
I do think that there is probably a few notches on that dial between like let's celebrate the guy injecting himself with untested herpes treatments and on stage to the adulation of however many people were at that biohacking conference, and a understanding that there can be free testing, specifically when they are dealing with these situations, like, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
My concern, and again, it's not to say, oh, I'm going to put a blame on any particular party. One of the earliest clinical trials of gene replacement therapy killed people, right? And it turned out it was bungled. There was just a lot of things were done wrong. And the problem is that given the climate, the reaction we have, that all of a sudden a bunch of senators who are some of the most scientifically ignorant people, and I'm both parties. Let me make that.
I didn't
very
even say
clear.
The word illiterate correct. You said scientifically, and I said illiterate. They're scientifically illiterate.
No, ignorant. And I'm gonna say this right now, both parties. Don't say it's those people over there that believe this. Now, excuse me, I'm gonna go into Chipotle because it's GMO free. It is you all's dumb, okay? And these are these senators are the ones that are like deciding on these things, okay? And I've met a couple times like privately with like some senator people, and I've been terrified, from very pro science, how ignorant they were. And they will decide, we got to ban this therapy. It's killing people. It's murdering people. And all of a sudden, because somebody screwed up, did something somewhere, this stuff gets delayed. Funding is hard. It gets dried up, whatever. And that's a very frustrating thing. And that's the thing. Not to say that, I'm like, Brian, I think you should be able to do whatever you want. Unfortunately, we live in a situation where somebody does something stupid. We're like, well, now nobody should be able to do this. It's like, great.
So I guess that is the idea. The idea is then a lighter hand when it comes to legislating. That to understand that there are going to be consequences, if not outright stupidity, but as long as the casualties are understood, then legislation should be light-handed.
Well, remember the world we live in right now. 23andMe used to give you this nice report that said, hey, there's a correlation between these genes and these diseases, stuff like this. To my knowledge, not a single person freaked out, because if you did see this thing happen, what did you do? You went to your doctor.
You went to a doctor. You went to a doctor and said, I've been informed that this is a thing. Will you please talk me through what this means? Medical
ethicists, whatever, like, no, people can't, this is wrong. They're prescribing, they're diagnosing, whatever. FDA is like, you guys can't do this. They shut down that thing. said, nope, we can't tell you this thing that, by the way, you can take this report, you can go use this free open source tool, plug it in there, get the same data, but no, we can't let you because you might not be able to handle this, which is the most patronizing, and that kills people. I'm sorry, like that is and we live in a world too where
I'll
people.
tell you what, politically, there's not a safer position to be. Politically, there's never a safer statement to make than we need more time to figure out if this is safe. Like, who's going to disagree with that, right?
Well, you and I. But
yes, because we're insane.
And that's the frustrating part. And we live in, there is, and I don't know what to make of this, but there are some people who argue that too many women get their breasts removed because they find out they have a gene, that relates to they might have the defective gene or whatever for that. But there's medical professionals all across the way enabling that, and so I'm just there's so much. It's frustrating. It's just all of a sudden that we have this thing like, oh, maybe you should think about this or whatever. Nope. Now you got to go to your doctor and ask them about it, and good luck at that. So,
well, I feel like we're circling around, and this also ropes in some of the conversation we were having in the pre-show, but the idea of our kind of protected shamans in our culture, and this is something that Andrew and I have kind of talked about forever, specifically with doctors, that it's like, man, there is so much medically that I would love to just have a AI for. Like, just little things at any time, day or night, judgment free, that I can say, hey, what about this? And it just general data, and like how much of our conversations that we have these kind of protected moments, these ceremonies with our shamans, where we walk in and we have X amount of time, and there is cultural reverence that we pay, and how much of these things that we have conversations with our general practitioners would be, I mean, better than something that we have with like WebMD, which is just nonsense clickbait.
WebMD equals you have cancer, like any possible symptom,
or you're pregnant, or you're pregnant and your baby has cancer. Like, but that would just be like some back and forth that we can have, and it's what I've loved about my health insurance, Kaiser, which also owns or runs the hospitals and doctor networks. They just have an easy app where you can like take a picture of your mole and be like, hey, can you forward that around your mole division real quick and tell me whether or not there's like immediate stuff? And there's no reason why now with machine learning that we just I can't have that instantly, to just be like, not to tell me your mole is cancer, but to just be like, hey, look, through looking at a gigantic database of weird skin discolorations, go see your doctor.
Yeah, well, and plus also it's think about it, because when it comes to a mole's a good example, because it's when you go in and you have a concern on your mole, what do they tell you? They say, let's take a picture of it, schedule an appointment in 6 months, come back, and we'll do it again. It's like, what a huge disruption to your schedule. If it was an app, if it was a machine learning thing, it's like, take a picture once a week. In 6 weeks, we'll have an idea whether or not, we will give you you probably don't want to say something. We will assess, in a shorter time with higher fidelity, using more precise, more objective information than, 2 doctor visits over a 6-month period.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, no, and I thankfully we're getting more of that. Not as much as we'd like, and not at the pace at which we want for. But I think that one of the things we need to be careful of is just that you get all of a sudden you'll get different groups. I was surprised as all get out that the FDA came out against 23andMe and said, no, you can't do this. That to me was just like, you're thinking who is being affected? Because if you have this like, oh, I have a lung cancer disease, gene, like, what do? Go talk to the doctor. Like, it just was like, it was just the
flow chart was not terribly complex. It was send in your stuff, no matter what else happens. Last bit, go see a doctor.
Yeah,
but it just came from, there are some people that think that it should be the shaman, should be there's this wall. No, regular people can't have this. They don't know how to handle it. And the idea that you're stupid and you don't know what to handle. And granted, like, we do dumb things, to be sure, but it's that patronizing sort of attitude. And again, this is the same This is the same FDA that gave us for years all the wrong information on salt and killed people. Gave us a number of wrong things, food pyramid stuff that was
Saccharin,
completely not based on science.
Yeah, sure.
However,
to be fair, our bureaucratic, very slow, sometimes people killing FDA also spared us from the horrors of thalidomide because by the time because thalidomide hadn't even been it's a 5 to 7 year process to get a drug approved in the United States, and so people were moving faster. So you can point to the horrible stuff.
I'm not against, before something goes into a wide thing, making sure that stuff's tested. Let me make that very clear.
Sure.
I'm not into the Wild West frontier and that. I'm a little L. I am, but it's like, and that's the problem we get into. It's like NASA, like, oh, I get critical so you hate NASA. Like, no, I love NASA. I love NASA. I just hate that there's a bureaucracy there that takes something that things cost 10 times what they first say they're going to cost, and they take 10 years longer. I hate that. You want to triple NASA's budget? Great, just redo the way they spend their money, and it's fine. It's like FDA. Like,
and the best example that I heard you two pitch to me is it's right now previously NASA was doing the equivalent of running the post office and insisting on building all of their own vehicles rather than buying them as a fleet from someone.
Of course, it's like when NASA went to the moon, the average age of a NASA employee was 27. Now it's 48.
Oh wow.
Because they're all still there.
So, it's a different sort of mentality there.
Well,
but
I guess here's the thing, and this might get to kind of some of the philosophical underpinnings of Brian, Andrew, and myself. But when it comes to these things, like the FDA, NASA, I don't think any of us are necessarily in any kind of blanket way against. It's just, hey, let's take a look at the hits and misses. Let's try to do more of the hits. Let's critically assess the misses. Like let's just look at these gigantic, massive organizations critically. And instead of just putting on a shirt saying "boo you" or "hooray this," like let's understand that they're gigantic, flawed machines, and we should always be doing our best to optimize them.
And I think a lot of it comes to like that we talked about before is the weird, the inappropriate use of the precautionary principle. It's this. Well, if we don't do this, if we do this, then people, if we shorten the amount of time in which these things are tested, then people might die. Like, and there's a metric, and I mean, my biggest thing that I criticize was the Human Genome Project. This was a project that's led now to therapies and treatments and stuff that are helping, come up with treatments for disease. When that Human Genome Project was first started, they figured it was going to take them like 10 years to make this thing, 10 years to map the genome, to get the map of the human genome. Along the way, Craig Venter, who was working for the National Institutes of Health, and said, hey, listen, I think we got as we're on a grant, said, I think we got a faster way to do this. We've got a faster way because now we can use supercomputers. When this thing was first conceived in the 80s, it wasn't possible. Now we can use supercomputers. We can do the shotgun approach. We break it up into a bunch of pieces. The computer can put it back together, et cetera. And says we could, accelerate this thing by several years. Took it to the heads, and they're like, no, we're funded for 10 years. This is we got a good thing going. Why are we going to do this? And it's kind of like, I don't know, because if we do this sooner, it means we can start working on those treatments sooner. Maybe it might be kind of a neat idea. I'm like, no, this is the pace we're working at. And so Venter, long story short, got funded, started his own company, and they started outpacing the government initiative to map the Human Genome Project until finally the government went back and said, hey, you know what? Let's call it a tie. And
we're both great. Also,
we both
how are you doing that?
And then shortly thereafter, Bill Clinton passed a law making it illegal to try to patent genes, which, and that's a more complex discussion. If that was killed biotech stocks, killed the biotech bubble, and there's some arguments made that it was the right call, and then some arguments to say that, and then people abandoned trying to cure certain types of orphan diseases and other treatments and stuff. There,
man, that's a real problem. That right now the incentives are in a world where we are quick to demonize drug companies for expensive drugs. it makes it less attractive to invest the incredible amount of speculative resources that it takes to create vaccines or whatever. And instead, if you're a big company and you have shareholders to answer to, then, you know, you're probably going to be better off with the obscene reality of investing your resources in a new pimple cream rather than, you know, trying to cure the next big disease.
And let me make it clear. I don't know what the right answer is on the patenting. I don't know. I mean, I know, but that was an outcome. That was an outcome.
Yeah.
There's an argument to be made for that. And I bring that up to say that maybe we shouldn't be and all that. There is a great book, Genome Wars, if you want to get into it, about how cellular genomics and whatnot, how what they were doing. It basically goes, they came up with a technique that was much faster at mapping and the rate at which it worked with. Because, hey, computers, turns out, they're kind of a cool idea. But yeah, I don't. Again, we don't. You know, this is an area I'm like, I don't want to push any of my politics, whatever, on anybody. I'm just saying that, like, it's just there are multiple views here, and I go, well, that's an interesting point of view. Huh, that's another interesting point of view too. That's an interesting point of view. Craig Venter's biography, I actually recommend. That's my pick. Is Craig Venter's biography. First one he wrote. He's a fascinating guy, not a guy that's, you know, in the normal everyday conversation, but one of the most brilliant people, I think, of the 20th, 21st century. And got into, you know, genetics later. I mean, I don't think he got his degree until it started a PhD program until his late 20s, early 30s. He was a medic, you know, and then said, this is an interesting area. And the contributions he's made are tremendous. So anyhow, let's go to the land of make-believe. Only it's real. It's real.
Super real, because it's time for Johnny Quest!
Previously on
Johnny Quest.
No side quests? No
side quests. No side quests. Let's go.
You see lasers shooting into the sky. Remember how bright Las Vegas was?
Yeah.
Nothing compared to this.
Hey, we have a gig here. We're just loading in.
He thumbs up. He's
Great.
like, we know it's sold out.
So we made it to Bryce Vegas with minimal side quests. I'm not going to say none. We definitely
it was
went
the
to
whole
hand it
episode
out.
yesterday.
Whatever. But we're about to load in. We're about to face Bryce. We got to figure out, Justin, our objectives as you stated them again were first place. See if we could Dave this stuff. Second
We're going
place.
to try and Dave his ass. We're going to try and get Bryce. We're going to kill Bryce. We're going to install new Bryce, good clone Bryce, as the new head of Bryce Vegas. Or we're going to try...
Or we're going to initiate the nuke. That's the weapon of last resort. We do have a nuke.
Was there a middle level in between where we didn't Dave him?
The middle level was killing Bryce. I guess the best of all worlds would be to reason with actual Bryce. I want to understand.
I think
why
we tried to reason. Listen, the number one top of the list priority would be to Dave his ass.
Okay, but what do we do with the actual Bryce?
He's dead.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He's
all
a
right.
brutal dictator who's attempted to murder us repeatedly, and one time sent a rocket by your head so tantalizing you had to reach up and grab it, and it ripped off your hand.
Okay.
Who sends that cute little rocket by you? You can't be held responsible for wanting to grab it.
I think you're convincing me that we should really try to unpack what's going on with Evil Bryce, but that's fine. That's fine. So, wait a minute. You know what occurred to me is that part of the daving? Hold on. Justin, we're in Bryce Vegas. We're sitting here. What was the fake name that we came up with? Mr. McCool or
Mustache Man? It's mustache time. I think that was it.
Oh yeah, it's Mustache Mike
Mike
or whatever.
Mustache. Yeah,
okay,
like
but
that.
so
Mustache.
here's the thing. We've got our super weapon. I don't see why we have to wait to encounter the real Bryce before we Dave his ass. We could start daving it right now and see if we can bluff our way into the palace and then get him to issue a proclamation that there's a fake Bryce afoot and that he needs to be captured. We can worm our way right into the brain of this operation right from the get-go. We don't have to do no big...
We need to be careful though, Because once we let on that we got a Bryce clone out here, like then if we're not ahead of the game, then it's over.
Well, we're already ahead of the game in that we have a nuke. And that's negotiation power. We have a nuke, and as far as we know, hey, Justin, try this on for size. I'm going to go out and say this was always the true heir. That we've had a usurper on the throne since the beginning. I say we install the rightful ruler of Bryce Vegas.
Number one, that play.
Now, as you say this, but you're driving down the main strip of Bryce Vegas. Okay.
Yeah.
There's Hard Rocker Hotel. Okay.
There's
Planet Hollywood.
Bailey's Casino.
Yeah, but they're bigger and better, and they're all Bryce's. It's all Bryce's.
The Frio All Suites Hotel and Casino.
Yeah. The Frito, please.
The Jerkus Circus.
Yes, it's Bryce's Jerkus. It's all Bryce's. This and that.
Starbust.
Now, in the centerpiece of this is, by the way, you're kind of really impressed because there's a hologram of Bryce, and like when the apocalypse happened, there wasn't hologram technology.
Okay, so it seems like they've. Hey, real quick, Justin, I'm just going to take the temperature of the locals so that we can strategize. I roll down the window to the passersby, and I say, who else here has strong feelings about our leader, Bryce?
All of a sudden, a guy turns around, whips his hair around, and there's Bryce. I do.
I was like, Bryce! Hey!
Good self, guys.
And then somebody else says, me too, and it's another Bryce. They both have guitars, and they start to play. Viva Bryce Vegas.
Oh, no. This is full of clones, Bryce.
Okay, now I say real quick, I'm like, hey, are you guys clones or are you just Bryce impersonators?
What's the difference, buddy? If you want a photograph, $5. Whatever you want. And they all talk like Elvis, which is weird.
Damn it. Okay.
Well, that's how you can tell the
You see people wearing Bryce shirts, and it's he's wearing like the Elvis getup, and it's like you just totally you vamped that.
Do we see anybody else that doesn't look like Bryce?
Yeah, lots of people, tourists, everybody, and they're just a few
okay.
Bryce.
So this is not a total town full of clones.
Yeah.
It
wait, over there in the corner. No, it's like seeing Elvis in Vegas.
It does seem like there are more Bryce clones than I would like, and we still don't know if they're clones. But
yeah, there's a puppet show over there. It's the Brian.
Do you
Jury
think the
puppet show.
Elvises in Las Vegas are clones of Elvis?
Sorry, the puppet show is what?
There's like there's a Justin and Brian puppet show going on. Like the guy's little theater there, and the puppets that people are paying. And...
All right, real quick, I tell the bus driver, stop, and I pull out some binoculars and also audio binoculars so I can listen to this play to find out what the locals think of it. I want to experience the play as close to exactly as it's happening as possible.
So there's a Brian puppet who's sitting in a podcast studio, and he's got a Justin puppet in another little podcast booth. Like, yeah, we're doing Night's Attacks. Yeah. And then in walks this Bryce puppet, walks up to Brian, says, I got the control board ready, but I just heard the news that there's going to be some sort of apocalyptic disaster. Oh, Bryce, well, looks like you got to go home. I'm going into my shelter. Bye. And he kicks Bryce out the door.
And how does the crowd react to this?
Boo! Boo! I mean, they're throwing their jumbo margaritas at Brian Puppet.
Their yard of margaritas.
So is there an epic conclusion to this puppet show?
Well, then we get then we see there's this Bryce just walking along this little road. I mean, it's just a piece of paper, but it's like it's one of those rolling backgrounds.
It's like the Japanese puppetry theater where it's like they're making it look like he's passing through areas.
Yeah, some shadow
stuff.
Some Terry Gilliam-esque sort of effects going on there, and all of a sudden you hear. There's lights go out on the little puppet stage, like a little black curtain. It says Apocalypse. We don't know what it is, by the way. And then it rolls back up, and Bryce is standing, little Bryce puppet, big head, is standing in the middle of this devastation. It's like, what has become of me? What has become of me? I've been abandoned. And people are like, oh no, poor Bryce, poor Bryce. He says, I will rebuild it. I will build it so all may come. And people start cheering.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're just ancillary cannon fodder.
No, I lean out the window and with my hat down so nobody can see me, I say, skip to the Mecca, Bryce. Because I want to see how we get to that part of the story. And then,
I don't know if we get that part. I think this is just the saccharine hero's journey of how the Bryce Vegas was founded.
okay.
Bryce stares up at the sky and says, I will unite them all with... And some cops come running up and say, this is an unlicensed puppet show. You've got to move along.
Oh, I say, boo!
You there in the RV.
Yes.
Oh, it's those guys. What are your fight names?
I'm Mike Mustache. It's mustache time.
I'm the other one. It's Mike Mustache and the other one. That's our team
Go right
name.
in. Keep going down the strip.
Okay.
Going down the strip. Remember, the police escort's like, listen, how long do we have to stop for? Remember,
Okay.
you
All
have police
right.
escort.
All right. Keep on going.
Continue on, and then it says you're heading right towards Brycer's Palace.
Brycer's Palace with the laurel wreaths all over.
Yeah. And a bunch of statues of Bryce. Very heroic poses all around there.
I lean over to Justin and I say, this place is all right. It's no Bryce DeLay Bay. but we can deal with it.
I know. Last
Some
time,
guy,
I heard a friend of mine said that
cop pulls up there, writes you a ticket, hands it to the window. Dad joke.
Oh, no!
I know. Everyone knows all the cool kids stay at the Bryce Metropolitan.
$250 ticket. So it says, fight tonight.
Stop to think of more puns. You're like,
Sorry.
hold on, I can
I mean,
think
you
of
can't,
another one.
there's not much you can do with MGM. It could be the
No,
BGB.
no. But I had a great time at the Bryn.
And the Bruxer.
Barrage.
All right. Hey, look. All right. So we're going to the venue. Let's get to the venue.
So you're at Caesar's Palace. You're in there. There's the big waterfall. There's everything in front of there. There's fountains, all that stuff. These statues, these great Roman statues standing up front. You're like of Bryce. Then they start to move and take different poses. And you realize they're actually just dudes who look like Bryce posing, painted white.
I pinch one casually, like in a painful way, trying to mess up his gig. Just trying to get him to break character. I resent all of this. I just pinch it real hard and then keep on going.
It's like ow, dude.
It's like that's right, because this is the other one.
So it
Mike
says,
Mustache
"Fight
and the other
tonight."
one.
But first, the big billboard, the weigh-in.
Oh. Justin.
Yeah.
You know wrestling. Is there any secret skullduggerous tricks we could do to win a weigh-in? Also, how do you win a weigh-in?
Okay, so number one, they don't have weigh-ins in professional wrestling.
Okay.
They have weigh-ins in
real
actual
wrestling.
competitive fighting.
Yeah.
I think if we're in more of the gray area, that we are like doing a legitimate fight,
Sure.
then there's only one sure way: pay off the athletic commission.
Okay.
Also, why are you assuming you're going to fail the weigh-in?
Well, I mean, there's not failing. I just want every advantage going into this. We're about to take on who knows what in here.
No, so the way that you win the weigh-in is really just there as a press opportunity to hype the fight.
Okay.
So we're
Ding.
yeah.
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to assume that the weigh-in refers to our biological weight. Both of us should refuse to disconnect our equipment. I latch on my chainsaw arm, and I put on my prosthetic dong, the heaviest one that I have.
Wouldn't you want to get weighed without that so that you would be matched up with a lighter?
No,
opponent?
no, we got to intimidate them. Justin, you weigh in. Insist on wearing your mech armor when you weigh in. Don't back down on it.
All right, it's mustache time.
All right, so we march in with all our goods on. We're ready to weigh in.
All right, what's your music that's playing as you go in?
It's
Carly Rae Jepsen. We want to play to the locals.
Carly Rae Jepsen. Got it.
What song?
Run away with me.
Call me maybe.
Run away with me.
Sure.
All right, we go marching down.
All right, you're marching. It's a big, huge crowd. Flash bulbs going off everywhere. You know, photographers, everybody, people crowding around. I mean, it's an amazing sight to be seen. You're like, man, who would know there was an apocalypse? You're like, oh, a lot of these people have weird skin lesions and sunburns too. Probably radiation poisoning. Okay, so you guys strut down the middle, ladies and gentlemen. The challengers. What's your names?
As of now, they're Mr. Mustache and the other one.
Asimov
Mike
now,
Mustache.
Mr. Mustache.
Mike Mustache and the other one.
And Asimov? Wait, as of now? As of now. As of now.
As of now, yes.
Say that again one more time clearly. I got to write this stuff
Mustache
down.
and the other one. Mike Mustache and the other one.
Mike Mustache and the other one.
Yeah! I rev my engine. I go. Ram, 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 ram.
All right, this is a no smoking casino, sir. You'll have to put out your chainsaw.
I gut him. I shove. I murder him where he stands. I shove the running chainsaw right in his gut and split him right up the top so he bisects and opens like an orchid.
And then I grab both sides of him with my mech hands and I comically make his head talk. It's mustache time! And then casually talk.
Cops surround you. Like, you know, we have laws here.
And I say,
And then wait, I look right into the officer's face and I say, I'm sorry, officer. He didn't know we couldn't do that.
All right, we're giving you a warning. And here's a token for a free spin. Okay.
Thank you, sir. And we make our way.
what's funny is I can't even deny that I've seen Justin use this tactic enough times that I'm like, yeah, it tends to work.
Well, you guys make it to the stage. There's the announcer. Like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, here we have Mustache Man and the other one here to weigh in. Tap on the scale. Really, this is formality, as you know, in most.
Yeah.
Hey,
you know.
I just want to let everybody know that this scale sucks, just like everybody out here sucks. You all suck. It's mustache time, and you will all know what mustache time means when we destroy whatever a-holes come from New Bryce, Vegas at our fight. Right, Brian? Tell him, Brian.
I was like, you heard it from the man himself, the man with the mouse, the mustache South. Whatever he said goes, and your town blows. I've got the time to make every couplet rhyme. I'm gonna rev this engine, and then I'm gonna
go in.
Stop talking because nothing rhymes with engine.
You want to know what? Hey, other one, pull out your dong and flip it around for all these good people.
Okay, so I do, and I reach down my pants and I remove my prosthetic dong and I flop it in an old lady's face who prudishly, hopefully, reacts horrified. Woo!
Anyway, bring on the J-Brones that are going to get it from Mr. Mike Mustache and the other one. It's mustache time!
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the challengers now for the reigning Bryce Vegas champion. Oh, did I just say champion? I did, because it's only one. It's only one. It only takes one man to defeat them all. I give you the one, the only, Grandmaster himself, the great leader, the sequined one, he whose beat knows no rivals, Bryce. It's super dark. Lights start to spin around. Laser beams shoot through the air. And then in the middle of the ceiling, a big circular stage starts to lower down. Now, they didn't bother clearing anybody out from underneath it. It actually flattens people underneath it.
I turned to the cop who gave us a warning, and I just give him this cockeyed look that says, really? Really?
He just flips you off. Then throws you another free spin token. Standing on there, we're talking bright red cape with shoulders that go out like a foot on either side, okay, that curl up, and he's kind of cool Disney villain sort of look to it. There's a shimmer to it. There's a sort of material that looks like some sort of nanofiber material. Boots, incredible. Like, it looks like, I don't know what animal has red skin, but that's what it's made from. Maybe some special breed of crocodile, or perhaps some sort of Komodo dragon kind of thing going up in there. Knee pads with spikes that are just look like they're just made of diamond sort of spikes, okay? Tight leggings going over the thighs, but the quads are really clearly visible. I mean, Bryce has been doing his CrossFit like something crazy, okay? Not going to get into the cod piece. The belt, okay? Now, this is actually the championship belt, the Bryce Vegas championship belt he's got on.
I roll my eyes so hard they can hear it in the audience and attempt to make the J-O gesture with my chainsaw arm.
You're trying to, Brian, but you're still being blinded. You're wiping your eyes because of all the light shining from the belt in your eyes. Like, actual lasers are built into the belt. You're like, will they turn that spotlight off of the belt? Like, no, that is the belt. The belt just does that, okay? Right? And the rippled six-pack, okay, fully developed, okay? And he's just wearing the cape. And he's actually got a luchador mask on, which is kind of interesting. You know, he's got a mask on. And he whips it off, and it's Bryce.
I say, hello, Bryce.
Hey. You ready to throw down?
I say, I still owe you for this, and then I show my chainsaw hand, and then
Did I do that?
so you don't remember running around in your giant mech armor?
He's like, hold on 1 second. Reaches into his back pocket, pulls out your hand, flipping you off.
Dude, got you. Like, I mean, I'm on your team, but that's an own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm too frustrated. Walk off in frustration. Shadow boxing behind Justin as he steps to the plate.
Hey, team meeting real quick.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, I'm sure Bryce is in his pose down as he goes and does his way in.
Sure.
All right. Here's
The theme from Exodus plays when he does his pose down.
Okay, all right. Listen, look, he's posing down. Let's just do this. Let's try to lure him into just a side room for a quick conversation, and then we Dave his ass, right? And then
okay, but here's the thing: we can't Dave his ass before we go into a situation where we're going to kill him, because we're going into a fight to the death. And I don't know if you picked up the fact that he's a little pissed off at you because you wouldn't allow him in your shelter and you sent him to die during the apocalypse. So we have no judgment on that, by the way. I'm trusting that puppet show is.
For the record, I don't remember that part of the story clearly.
Doesn't matter. We're past that.
Okay. So what do you recommend? When are we gonna do this?
Well, he just did a back pose, and everybody's like,
Okay,
The
so here's
laughs
what we
are
need
ripped.
to do. We need to Dave his ass while we're fighting him. We need to find somebody to create a controversy that there is a usurper. We've rescued the real Bryce, and we are now going to take righteous vengeance out on the usurper.
Okay, but if we're still, this doesn't fix the part where we have to fight to the death against somebody who clearly outclasses us.
That's a good point.
I don't think we're gonna win in a face-to-face. Bluff and bluster aside, I don't think we have it in us.
No, we marshal the resources of Bryce Vegas to take out the usurper. We, without his powers, he's got to have some stuff that won't be as powerful if people are actively trying to take him down.
Here's what we go for. We're gonna enter the battle, but before we do, we're gonna say our words, and then that's when we get that. That's when all eyes are on us, and we're gonna give the speech, and then we reveal the real Bryce. But how do we convince everyone that this is the real Bryce?
You would have to know something A, we have to know who the usurper is, and number two,
Double
he would
biceps
have to
closed.
know something that the usurper doesn't.
Okay, we'll figure it out. I think we're on the same page here. But in fact, actually, why wait until the fight? It seems like everybody's listening to us right now. Let's just go. Let's just do it. Let's reveal.
So you're gonna say we're shooting our shot right now?
Why? I mean, why not? At least now he's not fully armed. He's just in a ridiculous costume. Now's the time to get him. Look at him.
We need to reveal who we are too.
Okay. All right. I grab I grab the mic. I say, I'm gonna let you finish, but you got to understand, we're not Mike Mustache and the other one. How does the crowd take that?
I try to
Crowd-
cue the crowd in a gasp.
The crowd's like, go on.
We know a little bit about the real story of your so-called great leader, and I just give the biggest of side eye to Bryce as I do so.
And they're like, go on.
And then I guess oh man, Justin, it seems like right now would be a great time for us to do one of our night attack bits, and they can figure out who we are. But I don't remember any of the bits from the albums, and that's probably all they're listening to.
I just lean into the microphone and go, Merhoy!
Well, that's good. And then I bust out the Admiral Nelson. I'm like, 'tis us, Admiral Nelson and Captain Morgan.
I mean, I would think the Captain Morgan Brian Brushwood tracks would probably be a little bit more memorable.
All right.
Those are the ones on the album, after all.
Okay, so
Or
all right,
Captain Morgan would
actually,
get
that's a
top
good point.
billing in that
Okay,
pair.
I say, I also take corrections very well, and I say, you're a bottle of rum.
Not a bottle of rum. You know what? I'm the truth teller.
Wait, hold on, you're telling the truth?
Yes. The great Bryce has been imprisoned.
Wait, the great Bryce has been imprisoned? No, but how would a bottle of rum know all of this?
Well, not a bottle of rum.
Everybody's looking at each other right now, trying to figure out.
And I say, all right. Now, Captain Morgan, if you're not a bottle of rum, then my name's not Brian Brushwood.
Whoa, you're goddamn right, it is. You're a guy. I'm here for you, Brian.
I looked at the audience to see if they're getting it yet, if they figured out who we are.
They're like, oh, they thought that we didn't already know?
Oh, damn. Okay.
You're not wearing any disguise, bro.
Oh.
Justin's wearing a mustache on top of his facial hair.
Yeah.
I rip off.
I dramatically remove my mustache on top of my facial hair. And then I try to cue the audience again.
You weren't wearing a mask or anything.
Bryce turns to the crowd like, see what I'm talking about? You see what I'm talking about? Did I exaggerate any of this? And they're like, no. Kill them! Kill them!
Wait. No, sorry. The Captain Morgan bit aside. The man that has just told you the tall tale has been telling you tall tales since he first met you. The real Bryce
Yeah,
has been
we watched
in prison.
the Bryce Show. Bryce's Tall Tales every Sunday night.
I'm an incredible storyteller.
He has fed you. He is a usurper who sits on a throne of lies. We have the one true Bryce, the Bryce that he imprisoned so he could greedily take the
Yes.
throne.
He has the Throne of Lies. He's got a lot of thrones. The Throne of Lies is great. The Throne of Lies is actually made from emails of Brian sent to him.
It's one of my top 3 thrones.
Yeah.
Then we will reveal at our fight to the death. Not only will we righteously take out this fake Bryce, we will reveal to you the true Bryce that we have rescued.
Because we're invoking the rarely remembered wrestling rule of trial by quiz. And we'll not be fighting with our fists, but we'll have a quiz to figure out who's the real king of Bryce Vegas and who's the usurper.
Bryce reaches down into the crowd, and there's a guy with a hood on his head, pulls him up like super powered. Obviously, he's using some enhancements. Rips off the hood, and it's another Bryce. He goes, "Oh, you mean the guy you hid in your RV?"
I look with eye contact that conveys. Wait, are you our good Bryce?
Then he snaps him in half.
You killed good Bryce.
The shower of blood, but then he winks at you in Morse code.
Oh wait, I turn to Justin and I say, "Do you know Morse code?"
No, is that a dot or a dash?
And then
he winks at you, and then he does this sign with the blood across the upper lip.
Ah, Mr. Mustache.
And he wipes away quickly before anybody else sees.
All right. Well, you want to know what? This quiz will go on. And with the new caveat that if we both get questions right, we call it
Flashback
draw.
into a deleted scene like Kylo Ren aboard the Millennium Falcon. We have Bryce Bryce, while Brian and Justin are heading towards the way and says, the old RV that I have no memories of whatsoever. But I'm going to go walk aboard it and take a look around.
oh yeah, that's when we totally beat him up and
No, you guys were out there, but Bryce was alone inside of there.
I imagine good Bryce clone beat up actual Bryce, defying all the odds, and substituted himself for him.
How about this? We don't have a fight. In fact, we just say we love your city. Viva Bryce Vegas! And I try to start a chant.
I would imagine
Well,
everybody's
good Bryce says, "Gentlemen, that's a great idea, but trapped inside the compartment, I had a lot of time to think."
What's your plan? Quick!
Oh, you're not going to like this. Next time on Journey Quest.
Oh man, we just made another
these
evil Bryce.
Bryces are all the same.
They're deep down, I think they're all just Bryce. I think they all just double-crossing Bryces.
Gentlemen, let's do some picks.
I can't pick between these two picks because they're both so good for very different reasons. But over the weekend, I went and saw Game Night, which was amazing. It was great. It does a great job of keeping you guessing. It right around the time as a viewer, you think to yourself, "Wait a minute, are they just setting up so and so?" A character will say, "Wait a minute, is this going this direction?" And as a result, it's really, really fun and smart, and it's good. I also saw Annihilation, which is haunting and wonderful, and it's like a dream that I can't shake from my mind. Maybe I was overly primed going into this because I was thinking about how much I enjoyed 2010 and went back and watched some explanations of the ending of 2001. And Annihilation is one of those mind screw jobs that it takes you to a place that is very, very sticky and very hypnotic and strange and surreal and dreamlike, and I loved it. If you liked the tone of The Arrival, then or I guess Arrival is all it was called, then and you don't mind some scary, haunting images or spooky, it's more suspenseful.
There's some like thriller moments.
Yeah.
In it,
Then stick with Annihilation and go see it because I managed to see this never having even seen a preview, like not knowing anything about it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
And I would say if you saw the trailers or the previews, there are bits in the way that they cut those trailers that deflate little bits of that movie.
Oh, really?
Like I had seen I had seen different trailers and stuff. And it was. It's not like It's not like Get Out, which gave away like the entire
movie. Yeah, but more than you would like.
Yeah, they were saying, "Oh, that's okay."
Yeah,
okay.
dive into
But it's good.
Annihilation, not knowing anything if you're able.
And if you're outside the U.S., it's on Netflix. You can just watch it.
What?
On Netflix?
Wow.
We reported on this on Cord Killers.
Okay.
CordKillers.com, where we'll be talking about it in spoiling time.
Retaining this stuff is not my strong suit.
Justin.
Hey, by the way, John Francis Daly, who directed Game Night, is of course the kid from Freaks and Geeks and wrote Spider-Man: Homecoming with his writing partner, and is directing the Flash movie, or at least theoretically might direct a Flash movie. These DC things are never set in stone.
Sure.
Justin, have a pick?
Man, you want to know what? I don't know if I totally do. Really, the only thing that I watched, I didn't really love. I finished Altered Carbon, and I kind of, man. It's just, look, I love Altered Carbon when it's trashy Blade Runner. I don't like it when the further it gets outside of this central whodunit kind of premise, I think the weaker it is. IMO. But it's amazingly shot. It looks amazing throughout. So
yeah, the Tweed drum circle flashbacks and all that, just
it's just I think it's one of those things where that universe is so cool and the premises are so cool. I liked it so much better as a backdrop for a more kind of straight ahead story. And it kind of crystallized a few thoughts that I had just about kind of mysteries in general, and specifically that sort of like noir detective kind of story where the less characters are involved in general, the better there are. And I think that this Altered Carbon tends to get off the rails the more characters they introduce, specifically since part of the universe is that those characters might not actually be those characters because you can body swap and stuff like that. So that's my thought on Altered Carbon.
Yeah, I won't get into any particular plot points there, but there was the movie Surrogates, which was kind of a cool premise. There's a lot of similarities here, and there's a point in Surrogates, and I'm going to spoil this, where this, the real protagonist of the story announces that basically that this is a world in which people can like use these sort of robot simulations of themselves to go out into society and interact while you sit at home in a little pod. And the thesis of the movie is like, no, this is wrong. And then the point of the movie is like, you know what? We're going to get rid of this technology for everybody. And I'm like, wow, that's extremely immoral. That is extremely against every fiber of my being, the idea that I'm going to make this decision for everybody else all of a sudden. And I remember thinking like, oh, so like if somebody's in the middle of a surgery operating on a patient and you're going to shut this down now, that's fine. If somebody's flying an airplane, you're going to murder people and you're going to do this. There's a sort of a similar sort of thing that happens later on in Altered Carbon where somebody says, yeah, we need to go do blank. And I'm like, that's horrifying. That's genocide. You're the monster. You're the monster here.
And also it's just like there's this thing that happens sometimes in these sort of like weird near future sci-fi stories, or where like the cool thing that makes the story cool is morally ambiguous and we're following characters that want to shut it down. And I've always found that weird, because I'm always rooting against the protagonist that I'm supposed to like to succeed, because I don't want to see the central premise of the show shut down, right? I want to see it explored and go forward. And so I think that that's another kind of general problem. I don't know. There's a lot of boobs, though.
Yeah. My pick is I've been listening to various Jeff Bezos talks he's given. And Jeff Bezos is a very fascinating guy, and you watch these talks and you see him sort of make some of the similar points. And then I've been listening to a biography of Jack Ma, founder of Alibaba, and it's interesting seeing some of the similar things they say. You're like, oh, well, they both make this point. Maybe there's something to that. So I've been very much enjoying Bezos and talking particularly about, the early days of Amazon, and he looks at like what Amazon's kind of core goal was, reducing friction, just the idea of reducing friction. And often you hear about an idea, someone says, I want to do this, or you have an idea, I want to do this, but you got to do blank, 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 blank. Where Amazon was like, how do we reduce the friction of what we're trying to do? And then he talks about, the idea of focusing, just hyper focus on one thing. If you're a startup, whatever, focus on one specific thing. And base it on some real problem or something you really understand. And you think about how Amazon started off with like, okay, what's the pain of ordering things online or ordering things from catalogs? Solved it really, really well. Don't know if you know this. They did. And then Amazon as this growing company was facing the problem of like, we need so much storage space, so much computational capabilities. We need all of this. And their vendors really weren't able to sort of keep up with their demand. And they said, we need to just start deciding how to do this in-house. And, we have the money and the resources to start buying servers and start to figure out how to do this. And they built their own in-house system for basically meeting with whatever divisions they had, needing storage needs, whatever. If they needed to serve up images, let's come up with an easy way to store images. If we're doing A9 and we want to store up a bunch of data for doing, geographic locations, whatever. And they built this system and they said, you know what? We think we could increase and scale this and start selling this service to other people because we've solved our problems well. And they really solved it in a way that like Microsoft or Google kind of sort of couldn't, because Amazon was consuming this product, and they were a company that was a retailer. They were a company that had to serve up and do a lot of things that were very customer facing. And I think that's part of the reason why AWS is such a huge, it's the secret success story of Amazon. It's really the profit driver for what Amazon makes its money. It's, the amount of money they make from shipping things to you doesn't compare to the actual profit they make from the web services and hosting your Netflix videos and all this other stuff that these services they sell to somebody else. And that came from them saying, we have a real problem. We need a solution. And they're like, oh, we could sell the solution to other people.
Do you know the name of that talk or
I've just been looking at, I've been watching several different Jeff Bezos talks, some of the early ones. He does a great one early on. Let me pull that up because there's a great one where he talks about like, this was right after sort of like, I think the .com crash. And he was talking about, like, what do you compare? People were comparing the internet, the first internet, rush to the gold rush. And he says, here's the problem. The gold rush ended. They mined all the easily available gold out of California and there was no more gold. The .com crashed. It wasn't like, oh, there's no more internet. We ran out of internet.
Right.
It was, that was sort of a really, great point that he made. And he talks about how the best comparison was the electrification, about how when we electrified, and said that when we first electrified, when we first put electrification, it was about one thing, putting light in homes. He says the goal was let's just put lights in homes. And then somebody said, we've got electricity there. Maybe we could do other things with it, and like an electric fan. But the first electric fans, nobody had invented the socket. So if you wanted to power an electrical appliance, you had to screw it into a light bulb socket, right?
Oh, wow.
So you had electricity, but you had no sockets, right? And he showed this graphic of this washing machine that you'd sit on your front porch, this huge thing with this big tub, and it's made of wood and just this contraption with a motor. He says, here's the thing about this is not only like did you have to screw this thing in, there was no on-off switch. Nobody had invented an on-off switch yet. So, on the appliances. And so these were things that were like, oh, wait, okay. And that's very much kind of like early days sort of, in it. So if you look up, I think maybe the 2005 Entrepreneurship Conference, Taking on Challenge with Jeffrey Bezos of Amazon.
I think it is also covered in this TED 2003 talk, The Electricity Metaphor for the Web's Future.
Yeah, that sounds like a great
So we'll have that linked in the show notes.
Yeah. So he's just, this is a guy that, people predicted the demise of Amazon since its inception. He's kept doing what they're doing. He's been very, very adamant about the goal was the growth of the company, not short-term pleasing shareholders, et cetera, long-term building value, et cetera, and just a very, very smart guy. And he makes it says, this is a guy that even though he's the richest man in the world, still goes home and washes the dishes. So
As well it should be.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there you go. Gentlemen, Bryce, do you have a pick?
I do have a real quick one. I started playing that new Assassin's Creed game that came out last year, Assassin's Creed Origins. And as much as I am not a fan of these like huge open worlds with tons of icons and all sorts of little things to do, I do end up finding a meditative element of those things where you're just kind of going around this huge ancient Egyptian and Egypt area world and exploring the world and finding new things to do and finding animals to hunt. There's something that rhythm, even if I don't really enjoy the game very much, I think that rhythm is really interesting. And there's a new feature. I think it's out on PC, and I think it's coming to the console soon, called, I want to say it's like Discovery Mode or something. And so it takes place in ancient Egypt, and it's this huge map, and this mode will basically take you on a walking tour of these various parts of Egypt, and will give you like a history lesson of like,
Oh, cool.
of here's the pyramids, and here's kind of what we know about the pyramids and ancient life in this region. It's kind of a cool feature, and it's really an unexpected thing for, you know, a game about vengeance and murder. So I don't know. I think it's a lot of people like Assassin's Creed games, so it's not like I'm saying anything unexpected to say that there's something to them, but there's something to this one that I like more than any of the other ones I've played. So
Cool.
Sounds cool. Very cool. Gentlemen, it's been weird.
So it has.
Oh. All right. I'm going to go to the bathroom first, and then we'll do that.
all right.
Yeah, I'm gonna just copy Mr. Mustache Man.
Yeah. Me three.
Cool. Hi, everybody. We're going to start After Things here in just a minute. There we go. Click the After Things button. How's everyone doing? It has indeed been weird. Let me see if I can pull up the link. There we go. Just the Steam link for Assassin's Creed 4. Oh no, don't do that. Oh my goodness. I use Notepad when I take these notes for the show notes. And I keep forgetting that Notepad is also just kind of garbage. Yeah. We're going to talk about more. We're going to talk more about Annihilation on Spoiler Time. So if you're watching live, you can check that out right after we record Cord Killers at 6 Central. And if you're not a patron, you'll get it Wednesday afternoon. Check it out. Annihilation was super cool.
Yeah.
Did you go see Annihilation, Justin?
I didn't. No, this weekend was a little jam packed with show prep for the live show.
Oh right, that's
Thursday.
this Thursday. Oh my goodness.
It's Thursday.
Uh,
So I had to like check it out and then do some more work, and then also just get everything together and get all the posted in the Discord. Did some merch prep.
oh yeah, your see you later. Oh, those are bigger than I thought. Is that real size or is that the sticker?
No, this is just the packaging for the Anyway See You Later pin. This is
Yeah.
a pin, and then the back on it, just because I wanted to look better on the table.
Oh, but that's not okay. So, but that's a pretty big pin though. Still,
It is a big pin. No, it's one of them two
2
two
pins.
fasteners.
Yeah, I've got the one I'm wearing today is a two back.
Yeah.
But it's not
So just to give
quite
you a
as big.
sense, this is the one of the Diamond Club pin sets that I've
yeah.
done during the holidays,
Mm.
and then that's next to it is the Anyway See You Later pin.
And so you had those on Thursday at the live show at Piano Fight in San Francisco.
At Piano Fight, 4 tickets left, by the way, and you might block out another slower, more annoying friends of mine who have told me that they are buying tickets and have not done it yet. But F them if you get the tickets and they don't.
That's
So go ahead and get your tickets there. So that and then just packing up. We have the new sticker set that'll go on sale on Friday along with the pins.
Oh, very nice. Those like robots, superhero.
So we got it's the future set. So we got a little roly poly Diamond Club robot,
That's cute.
and then a little future man creating a little electric diamond.
Yeah, that kind of looks
Yeah,
like the guy from
just-
Incredibles.
This is my favorite. This is Future Cat here.
Oh my gosh, is that a hairless cat with laser eyes?
Yeah, little diamonds in the eyes, hypnotizing you.
Oh, that's incredible.
So- Go ahead and check those out. $5 sticker pack. These will all be in it when those go on sale on Friday, and you can get them at the show cheaper than you can get them online. And then we'll have, of course, all of them at the Night Attack live show on the 10th.
March 10th. That's right. Here at Austin in at the Kung Fu Saloon.
Oh, saloon. And by the way, big shout out to you doing the what's it called, the hype video.
Oh,
that
the
was so
little
cool.
The promo bit. Yeah, that was fun. That was a little fun thing to do to make on Friday. If you haven't checked it out, we tweeted that at Night Attack Show. Hey, oh, there we go.
Yeah, we gotta pop that again.
Pop.
Pip it on the Twitter.
Yeah.
Pip it on the Twitter.
Yeah, we already had some people it's not an official thing, but it's very helpful for us and for the venue to know if people RSVP via Facebook. Just let us know if you're going.
RSVP.
Yeah, it's not ticketed. It's free. It's open to the public, but
it helps to know.
Yeah,
how
it
many
helps us
people.
know how big we should expect everyone to be.
I mean, yeah, in the real world, they want to know if they need to call another bartender.
Yeah, basically.
So it will be better for you. The experience will be better. You'll be able to get a drink and have food delivered faster if you RSVP. So help us help you RSVP for the friggin' show.
Yeah. Is there something else? No, I think I'm good to go. You guys good to go for after things?
I do believe so.
Affirmative.
Okay, cool. I did not know how to interpret that face. What do you do with that? Yes or no? All right, then take it away for after things in 3, 2.
Welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood,
Hello, beautiful people.
Justin Robert Young,
Hello, friends.
and our producer, Mr. Bryce Castillo.
Hi, everybody.
Gentlemen,
Yeah.
so, one of the things we deal with as creatives, and we're all creatives here, we're all creative people. I think most of our listeners are people who are creative, and being a creative doesn't necessarily imply that we're any good at it, but it does mean that we spend a lot of our time making things or taking ideas and making them into stuff. And the problem as a creative is that, well, you create and you come up with ideas all the time. And I know I'm sitting here with 3D prints next to me. I've got windows with code sitting below me. I've got a thing for novels in front of me and emails for I can't say what, but I can say that I have a TV project that is in the works.
Congratulations!
Yeah, we'll get more details as I'm allowed to give details on that, but I can say that. And
Is it fair to say a pretty big deal? Like pretty?
Yeah, it's not a novel. This isn't a novel. This isn't one of my books. That's other stuff. That maybe it's some other.
No. I'm sorry. What I mean is, it's not a chump change. Third tier.
Yeah, it's trash.
TV.
It's rad. It's rad, and we look forward to talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get into coyly being coy.
Correct. Okay, I agree.
Yeah. So, I haven't said anything because I don't like to play the game of like I'm doing something, but
Yeah.
Particularly because I have books and people are like, is it a book? I'm like, oh no, is it my favorite book? Is it my favorite book going to be like? No, it's not. It's not that. Like, good luck to you, Andrew. It's like, but yeah, so trying to manage this stuff is as we all can understand, it's overwhelming. It is extremely overwhelming, and I have in a couple weeks I have the second Theo Cray book is due out. Or is getting,
Wait,
is going
how
to be
soon?
March 14th.
Oh my gosh, it's right around the corner. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. In the midst of that, I've got to write another book, and so I have to, a lot of trying to manage stuff and all that, which gets to be stressful. And in the middle of that, putting together IKEA furniture so I can organize this place, and I have wrestled with most of my life of like, what should I be doing? What should I? And we all go through this, we all go through this sort of like, what should I do? And Brian, you were working for, Dell, and you're like, I don't know if this is for me. Justin was, twice we plucked from, doing filing permits in New York City to go, I don't think this is for me. And then plucked from Coconut Creek, Florida, in a warehouse, putting together magic tricks going, I don't think this is for me, and then, well, actually thrice, then, doing the Go game going, I don't think this is for me.
Well, and to be honest, this is something that I said at, I echoed. I'm so glad to hear you bring this up because I stumbled across this thought. The honors program that I did at UT is called Plan 2, and one of the benefits of it is that you spend the first 2 years, it's interdisciplinary. So they tell you to take, get all the basics. Here, take your maths, write a billion papers, and figure out what you like and don't like. And then you get a focus and you take whatever classes are related to it. And so they asked me to talk on a panel to a bunch of sophomores in the program, of which I am an alumnus. And I said, do literally anything to figure out what you hate. It's easier to know what you love by drawing the outlines of it as the things you hate. And it's a crass way to put it, but I think it's very effective. Figure out what you hate and do the opposite, and that very likely will be something that you love. And so later on, somebody sent me an email saying, hey, do you have any ideas of what I should do on the YouTube channel? And I wrote the same thing. I was like, do literally anything to figure out if you love it or hate it. The worst thing you could do is sit around waiting for a good idea, waiting to figure out, doing like there's so much value artistically, motivationally, intellectually that comes from doing stuff that makes you mad to even remember having done it. The more I hated an experience, the more valuable that experience tended to be in guiding me to things that I later went on to love. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Justin?
Yeah, and I would say what you find is sometimes counterintuitive because, Andrew mentioned that what I was doing before I came down to back home to South Florida was like sitting and waiting in line professionally to file building permits. Now, you might think, hey, that's a lot of time that you have to yourself. If you're literally just sitting in the Department of Buildings between Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, then that's a lot of free time you can do what you want with. There's a lot of being out of the office. There's not a lot of sitting in front of a computer, but it was miserable. I hated it. Right. And it's like, okay, well then what don't I like about this? If I'm out of the office, if I'm doing more stuff, it's like, okay, well, I don't like that my time's not mine. I don't like that I get to be pushed around, and stupid things like, they shut off the internet one day, or they blocked a bunch of internet sites, and including like Facebook and stuff, like all the fun stuff that you'd want to do on the internet. And I asked them, I'm like, well, why? They're like, oh, well, because a lot of people are just like shopping online during the day. And I'm like, but what about me? Like, oh, you're doing great. You're doing amazing. Yeah. I'm like, well, then why don't you turn my internet back on? And they're like, well, because we can't. We don't like, it's just a thing where we don't want one person to have it. And I'm like, okay. And that is petty and small, that it was like part of the reason why I'm like, okay, well, not to say, I mean, I think I would have went down and worked with Andrew no matter what, because the opportunity was there, and it would have made me happier. But it is something that, like, when I then went back to the Go game and I was taking a more traditional paycheck, I would not have considered a job that put limits on my freedom and creativity, that didn't value my own time as explicitly mine, that I do exactly what I want to do, and you give me parameters under which I can deliver, and that is our agreement throughout this. Like, that's something that like really kind of shaped the fact that I'm a bad employee who likes to do whatever he wants as long as I'm delivering, right?
But again, it's that phrase, as long as I'm delivering, and that's one thing. And Bryce, maybe you could chime in on this. I think I've been pretty good as we've grown in making it explicit to everybody as they join the team that it's like we're paying for results. And like, I think I've been like, can you think of any time I've asked you about how you manage your time and tried to make suggestions on how what you could do could be more effective or any of that stuff or more in line with?
Not that you're on the spot with your boss.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah, and
this
this is
is
an
kind of
unfair
like-
way to
And
put
this
it
is
up.
not a
This is-
leading
yeah,
question
but-
to have you talk about how good of a boss Brian is.
I think, what I'll say is, yes, we are very results focused because so much of what we work on is deadlines. But I think also a lot of it is kind of being left to your own devices to figure stuff out. Without very little of what anybody who's worked here has gotten is training or apprenticeship or anything, which is for most people a very bad thing.
That's really interesting.
People
That's a
need
weird.
to be onboarded and understand the environment and dynamics. And because we're also very remote, there's very little opportunity for like, hey, real quick, can you? Because everything becomes a thing when everyone is remote. It's like, oh, hey, we need to I need to get in touch with you and send you stuff or X, Y, or Z. And so I think there is a lot of flexibility in the things that we do, but I think a side effect of that is we're all very isolated and if you were a new person, it would be tough coming in. I think.
I'll be really curious to see what the effects are because you're right. That's an inherent bias in the way we've run things so far. It'll be really interesting to see what the long-term effects of that are, positive and negative.
Yeah, because I mean, it's really nice for a lot of the schedule stuff that I do. You know, we do Monday, which is like a 10-hour day for me, and then Night Attack goes past midnight.
Right.
Most Tuesdays, and then it's a very open schedule, and so you get all the good and bad that comes with that. Of just like, well, we've got X, Y, and Z coming up, but then here's a bunch of time that you don't have to be accounted for. So it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah.
It's different temperaments. Like, yeah, I worked a desk job for a very short period of time, and the weirdest one in the world, that the James Rand Educational Foundation. So where you're
is that the sum total of your behind the desk work experience? Oh,
Yes.
How weird! That's wonderful.
Yeah, like I'm looking at photos of ghosts all day. I'm like,
Talking to crackpots and crazy people.
Yeah, and it was just
that, by the way, that's Andrew's like, well, humping the desk 9 to 5. Like, I'm just like you, normal folks.
And
Working for the weekend.
anybody who knows me knows I work nonstop. I am always working on projects, doing stuff. It is hard for me even to stop and watch. Like, the only time I'll generally watch a Netflix show is I'll go to bed and watch something for an hour or so before I go to sleep. Mm-hmm. I love to work. I love to do things, and maybe that's not the healthiest thing in the world, but I don't like office hours. To me, it's office hours are not the thing for me. But amount of time that I put into work, I couldn't even, if you asked me to add up how many hours did I spend working on a book or working on a code project or working on the TV thing I'm working on or whatever, it would be easier for me to subtract the time that I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I like that. And the thing that I've had to now, I have a lot more peace of mind now, because the way I've been managing multiple projects now is I've gotten really into sort of time focused in saying the idea that I have a software project that I've been working on that relates to sort of the TV thing kind of thing, an ancillary sort of thing. And I wanted to get enough work done because I have a really fast deadline, like what's coming up. But I've got to go, I've got to go shoot something in like 8 weeks, less than that. But meanwhile, I've got to write another book, and I had to write another book last month and get that done. And now I've got to turn around another book. But I said okay, I want a little time between the last book and this book. So I will spend 2 weeks jumping into the software project, figure out figure out how far I can take it, then set that as my deadline. And then my drop dead was last night, and I was actually up till 3 a.m. solving one last little problem that I needed to figure out how something was going to work. And then now it's like, that goes to the side now. And now I'm like, this week, I'm just outlining. This week, my job is to outline this book. And then my job next week is to write the book. And then after that, I can jump back into it. And I have another bigger, grander project I want to do. But I'm like, Nope, that's until I'm done shooting, and so that's how I've been working on my sort of, because I have bigger tasks and smaller stuff, and like I'm like, oh, the next big thing I'm trying to work on, I need to put that till after. So I would just say that like I've been having the most success lately, and this has been over the last year, is I don't stress out about deadlines or anything like that anymore, because I just sort of say, this is the time that I have to do it, give myself double the time to do it, and then once I have to start on this day with that, drop whatever I was doing previously and go into the next thing.
So you're doing more serial time slicing than trying to work in parallel. Like,
yeah, I think parallel for the most part is BS.
Yeah, I agree.
And I had a conversation with a friend who's a writer and who was arguing that he was a parallel, and I'm like, I think your total time taking is 3 times as long as it would have been if you just said instead, I will write this book over this period of time, and that is all I work. Because it is so much of your bandwidth isn't just the hour you're spending writing. It's the 2 hours at lunch thinking about what you've got to write for that. And when you divide that up, and it's hard to reset and restart. And again, other people may be different, but I think the more people argue that they're good at multitasking, I think the worse they are at I don't People tell me, like, I would look on the outside, I look like a multitasker, but I'm the exact opposite. I'm this thing, this moment, this frame of thought is for here. And then once that's done, maybe I'll pop open something else, whatever, but I don't pop open the other thing when I'm stuck. That's the worst time of the world. And that's when people want to multitask. Like, I'm stuck on this, I'll go work on this. Like, yeah, you'll get an answer to the other thing eventually, but it'll take you much longer than if you just said, how do I solve that?
I think one of the biggest things that I took from being so close to Andrew's work process is the idea of functioning your work existence into getting into that. People like describe it as like in engineering, it's like the code coma, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like this idea where the world kind of dims around you and you're focusing on the project, whatever it might be, right? And then when you kind of come out of it, you realize that a couple hours have passed, right?
Well, that's we're talking about flow state, right? When you finally hit that groove and the world goes away. I know that when I was editing my own projects, very quickly, entire days could vanish. Just incremental changes, replaying, watching, making those tweaks, and as a result, it's very, very seductive in that format. Whereas something less seductive is looking at a blank page, trying to figure out I have to fill words in all this. That's very, very hard and taxing and challenging. But once you get over that hump, it becomes so pleasing.
So that's what I've been working towards, is figuring out there's some things that's very, very easy for me to get into a flow state. Like programming, super easy to get into a flow state because you've got a list of problems you're trying to solve. And so you're just sequentially going, first I got to get this thing to work, and then I got to get this. So you know what your problem is because you start off to write a program knowing this is what the outcome's going to be. And I've been applying that, and I've applied back and forth writing books. How does this apply? In books, I had an interesting conversation last week with the director talking about my process about, and it was interesting because they really liked my process. He really liked my process for writing, and mine was sort of very the same thing. It's like I establish the bigger thing, the bigger conflict, the bigger problem, like a program or whatever like this. Then I break it down into the smaller conflicts and the mini conflicts and the many things I have to do there. Now I put a character in this with a personality and a way of making these decisions and choosing these things. And when I follow that pattern of how I write a book, the book goes very, very smoothly. If I just take an outline and say, let me go write this, it's not as clear, and I have to think up those steps. It's like anything. Like if you want to write a piece of code, you've got to break down the problem into the smaller tasks. If I want to write a book, it's not just say this is a chapter. A chapter is a meaningless phrase. It has to mean this is a scene
segment.
That starts with a conflict. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Starts and ends
this
with
is
something.
a module, and in fact, I think that's part of the reason that of all the various social media platforms, Twitter has ultimately been my favorite because it's a series of very small modules that just need to be solved, whether it's to acknowledge somebody's frustration, whether it's to respond with a witty rejoinder, whether it's to have a conversation or whatever. And we're at a weird place, whereas email, because it's so free form, you can get this 3-page thing of somebody telling you their life's thing. It's so amorphous that it's challenging for me to ever get that back out. And you know, I do my best to try to. However, at Replies, because there's never an expectation of writing more than 280 characters, always all day long. Happy to do those.
And that
go
the
ahead.
problem with Facebook is that Facebook is this. It's a starting point. They want that every photo, every comment, a starting point to then keep pulling you back into this dialogue and conversation. So it's not just like, hey, check this out. Oh, cool. How's your mom? Blah blah blah. And I kind of like, oh, geez, you know, the obligations now for attention to other people is overwhelming. So it's February now, 2 months Facebook free.
Congratulations. Good on you, man.
Congratulations. No, look, man. Oh, God, I can't. Then, God forbid, you friend somebody, and now you're connected on Messenger, and now I got to go to Messenger, which is just a
Jesus.
Tool
Yeah.
and ugh.
I am sure I've missed out on opportunities I am sure of that. But I'm at a point right now in my life where I'm very comfortable saying I have so many opportunities on my plate. The fact that there is this filter is not a bad thing. Because I'm at the point where I'm like, I have to weigh everything I go do or every decision, every meeting, because I know, like, you know, chances are 50-50 this thing is going to lead to, yes, we want to do this thing. And then I'm like, well, that's another thing that I now have to figure out how to manage that with everything else. So, you know.
Hey, so if we can jump in early to picks, I got a pick that has a question attached to it that I think you guys would find interesting. There's a program. First of all, is that cool with you guys? I just sort of announced and then started going.
I'll say aye.
Okay, good.
Aye.
And also, it doesn't have to be a pick. You could just, yeah.
Well,
What's up?
it's tied in with my pick. Okay, so spoiler alert as to what my pick is going to be. My pick is going to be a podcast called Under the Influence from the Canadian Broadcast Company, the CBC, and it is very radio, by which I mean highly structured, and you can tell where the ad breaks are, and it follows a very simple formula or a very regular formula that involves, you know, a setup, a sideways thing, whatever, an XYZ, and then the summary at the end. However, Terry
Clint
O'Reilly is an industry pro who's been in the trenches, and so the whole thing is about the world of marketing and advertising, and he explains the core principles and tells amazing stories of ad campaigns that worked and didn't work. But recently he had an episode specifically about comic book ads, and it was my favorite episode he's done. I enjoyed it so much that I wrote him an email, and we exchanged pleasantries, and I expressed what a fan I am of his stuff. But specifically, comic books, he talks about the Comic Code Authority and about how, you know, people were worried that comic books were corrupting their youth. And so the Comics Code Authority tightly regulated the content of the comic book, but in no way regulated the content of the ads. And so as a result, you know, he tells the story of the guy who created Sea Monkeys. And for example, this photo that we're seeing right here, Darling Pet Monkey, the squirrel monkey, that was a real thing. For $18.95, they packaged hundreds of thousands of squirrel monkeys and sent them into the United States, this invasive species. And the part that really stuck with me, outside of the nostalgia, you know, if I say the insult that made a man out of Mac, you know exactly the story that I'm talking about. The Charlie Atlas, the skinny kid getting sand kicked in his face, he gets buff and then punches the bully and all that stuff. The part that really stuck with me is someone's assessment, and I'm so sad that I can't remember the names right now. Maybe it's in the article, but he said that because of the nature of comic books and because parents were never going to sit down and read them with the kids, advertisements in comic books were, I'm going to do my best to quote this correctly, a secret conversation between advertisers and children with no parental supervision, which is why you were able to make these outrageous claims of all these things that none of which lived up to their expectations. The X-ray specs did not give you X-ray powers. Yeah, the wooded lodge was, you know, a piece of Mylar with a house painted on it that you would drape over some couch cushions or whatever. But that idea of a secret conversation between advertisers and children with no parental supervision resonated with me because in many ways, Scam Stuff is a grown-up adult version of this of exactly this. I'm trying to appeal to adults with the fantasy of being a ninja spy, robot, whatever. But it made me very aware that children are watching Scam School and The Modern Rogue as well. Although that isn't so bad because oftentimes they're watching it with parents or they're watching it on video where parents could see the messaging. And I realized that the 21st century version of this secret conversation is in all of these free apps. I will never watch my 5-year-old play her Pretty Princess dress-up game, but it is deeply disturbing to me when she comes to me and says, Dad, will you do this? I can't go back to Pretty Princess dress-up game until I murder this zombie that's an ad for another free app. And I realize these apps are the 21st century version of this comic book secret conversation.
Well, that in YouTube, the YouTube videos that they've been having the problem with.
Oh yeah, the ones that are designed to be hypnotic for children and utterly intolerable for adults.
Yeah, I'm gonna send Bryce
Spider-Man, Elsa.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna send Bryce an image, by the way, just of something kind of amusing.
Okay, well, in the meantime, let me just shower praise on Under the Influence. It's great. If you want to hear stories of conventional advertising and brilliant storytelling and engagement and people thinking outside of the box, coming up with campaigns, and it's highly nostalgic too, because half the time when he's describing the setup, it's a fun game to bet like, oh my God, I think he's talking about the story of the Energizer Bunny. Oh my God, he is. It's a really great program, and I like it a lot.
I just sent Bryce an image of what I used to use as an ad for my stuff.
This is great. It's straight up the Johnson Smith catalog.
Yep. Back when WeirdThings.com was where I had my magic site.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that was because I had the same epiphany you did. I'm like, yeah, I went to the back of that comic book and I'm like, I loved the potential and the promise and what was this and what was what was involved there,
Well, plus also is the artifact of the fact that once you read the story, oftentimes, well, now what are you going to do? It's like, well, you could read the story again, or, well, look, there's all these interesting sub-stories in the margins over here.
Yeah, I had, my whole plans for becoming like Batman based upon using they had the little fold-up binoculars, they had the ninja outfit, all this sort of stuff. It was all there. There was one of those, we talked about this years ago. The guy who was one of the Kung Fu masters or whatever, Master so-and-so, you'd see his ad.
Oh, that's right. It would promise you that you would get ancient Chinese secrets, basically.
Or he was teaching the Death Touch or something like this. Yeah, and I remember
correct.
looking up the story on this guy, and it was just this fascinating kind of morbid kind of, I think, armed robbery, all sorts of stuff. What is his name? Comic book Kung Fu Master.
Yeah, here it is. Kung Fu and Karate. You learn by looking and listening the easy way for less than 16 cents per lesson.
No, but there was another one. The guy you would see this. There was a photo of this guy with this big fro. Oh, here we go. Count Dante, deadliest man alive. Black Dragon Fighting Society.
So one of the things Terry O'Reilly says in his radio program is, on the one hand, oh, that's right. I do remember this one. He sort of questioned, like, on the one hand, is this a case of taking advantage of the baby boomer generation, or is this a case of building up healthy skepticism, or did it make a generation of cynics out of it? Because I think all of us bought some of this stuff at some point. But man, when he starts quoting the numbers in millions that were made on this, it really puts a stark light on what's happening in the app market right now.
There's also a case that happened really recently, and not to get too much into YouTube drama sort of stuff, but one of those Paul brothers has his Team 10 thing, and he was selling this educational video series, and it's Team 10 1000 or Team 1000 or something.
Right.
And so you pay $7 to kind of get in the door and you see a few clips. But the insidious part about it is that you would, sign up with the credit card to pay the $7. But then once you dug like another inch deeper, there's a whole library of videos that'll teach you everything about how to make it on YouTube.
Sure.
And that's only $57. All you have to do is click this button, and kids, you already got your parents' credit card information in the site, and they don't have to re-enter it. To the point where banks were seeing those transactions and calling them scam, like flagging them as fraud. Because it was that sort of insidious thing of like, you get in the door, and then once you're there, you just wiggle your way out.
Marketing to kids, man, that's a weird thing because
for my generation, it was 1-900 numbers.
Yeah,
1-900
976
that grew up, that like exploded in the 80s for everything. Everything had a 900 number, and I remember looking up the numbers once because I named the wrestling podcast that I'll be doing in about an hour is 1-900 Wrestling, because it became so gigantic. The WWF one or the Hulk Hogan 1-900 number was like one of the most popular of all time. But similarly, like the amount that they made on those things, and all you did was on kids programming that appealed to a lot of children. You just put up this number, talk to your hero right now, please get your parents' permission.
Or American Idol, you would call in to vote, and there was no limit. You just kept calling in to vote for your person.
Yeah,
and I'm sure those were all some sort of charge.
Did they charge to vote? Or I
don't think the American Idol ones were.
But that was at a time where I think you could text, and texting was not always free.
Got it.
Yeah, texting, there might have been limited stuff on texting.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Someone in the chat room says, I remember getting in trouble calling the 1-900 number from the Howard the Duck movie ad.
Wow.
Everybody of a certain age knew a kid that like got their ass kicked because they spent too long trying to figure out something on a 1-900 number.
I think this was before I got my own cell phone, but on like the family cell phone or something, they had, it was one of the classic clamshell flip phones, whatever. One day it had rudimentary internet access, and it had some like dungeon crawling RPG game.
Yeah.
That I only spent a few minutes just like, okay, you can click through it, and
this was text based.
It was like a browser based.
Okay.
It was like rudimentary browser based. And I remember one day just like, hey, the bill is really expensive this month. What's this data? And like, but it's and any way they can get you, they'll try to get you.
Well,
yeah, you look for an efficiency or an exploit in the system, and then you try to take advantage of that. And as kids have access to parents' credit card numbers and able to have disposable income, it's gonna happen. And then you look at scams and stuff that prey upon adults. That might be something entirely different episode we can talk about, like the danger of a lot of these get rich things or whatever.
You know what?
that.
I actually would like to dive into that. That'd be a fun thing for next week, is talking about the hedonistic treadmill of the success industry and the ups and downs of it.
Man, I have a buddy that's pretty good businessman, pretty good entertainer, who will tell me about, I went to this seminar about this, I get this course, it was great. I signed up for so-and-so's course, it was $5,000, but it's great. It's got a lot of, I'm like, how much are you spending on these things? He's like, I'm getting a lot of value out of it. I'm like, I'm sure you're getting good stuff, but man, this sounds like an industry to prey upon people who are into this industry kind of thing. Like professional speakers. And
knowing the person that you're talking about, if that money had been spent on continuing to reinvest in his own business, which does well, I think he would have a substantively different. Is
it me? It's me. It's me you're talking about, isn't it? It's me.
Well, I mean, a thing I thought about was, I toil with the idea of like, do I want to do more lecturing? Do I want to go do more talks? Do I want to go do more of that? And I thought, like, I wouldn't mind doing more of that, but do I want that to be my primary thing that I'm doing? Because if that's my primary thing that I'm doing, then I'm not really doing the things that I want to do. And some of these business mentors and stuff like this, like, man, if these guys are great captains of industry, then I would think they would be captaining big industries instead of showing up at a Holiday Inn trying to sell you a $3,000 course. Not to say that there's aren't values to some of those things, and sometimes it's like, sometimes you hear narrow course like, "Hi, how to improve your plumbing business" or something like that, which is probably not a bad idea or something like that. And I think a lot of people could benefit from some of the knowledge out there, but it does become this sort of.
Ooh, I'll tell you what, and this is I'm curious. Next week we'll talk about it because I think Brian will probably have the most to say about it because I've heard you talk about these kinds of things a lot, but. Man, for everyone like that's there to help, boy, does it seem like there are 10 that are literally there to just get you into a hotel ballroom and sign up for the next hotel ballroom.
Yeah. Which reminds me, we're going to do a plug here for the new After Things Academy, which if you're
it's going to be in a hotel ballroom.
Excellence,
but listen, if you really, really, really want to get the real deal, there's another hotel ballroom that we'd love to get you into.
Save it all for next week. We're out of time.
Picks?
Mine is Under the Influence by Terry O'Reilly. It's a CBC program, very bingeable. You can go back. There's like probably hundreds of episodes, each one expertly storytelling. And it's all about the thinking behind the ads that changed the face of Western civilization.
A lot of people ask, we got the new pins going up at the end of the week. The Anyway, See You Later pins. I've been getting these done at allaboutpins.com. Great. One of these businesses that are really, really smart, man. They're a little company out of, I think, like Winter Park, Florida, outside of Orlando. But literally their job is to just be the middlemen between you and China. So China prices with English customer service. Boy, howdy, does their cut is their cut worth it when you actually get what you want from a Chinese factory at that kind of price. So go ahead and check them out. Allaboutpins.com.
Groovy. The book I'm in the process of listening to is, I think it's just Alibaba, and I think it's the story of Jack Ma and creation of Alibaba, because it's one of these things where I'm very guilty of often having an American bias towards things. The internet is like, it's what goes on here, and meanwhile, turns out rest of the world bigger than America. Fun fact. Didn't realize that. And you look at, let's say you take Alibaba, which is kind of their version of, Amazon and Walmart and whatever. There are more Alibaba customers in China than there are Amazon customers in America, and this is an entirely, other story about somebody. And sometimes it's kind of like, it's interesting to see how these things turned out there. And funny too is that they talk about some of these other Chinese internet pioneers. One of them is a guy that Randy, who I worked for, used to know. Randy years ago went with Psycop to this mission to China, in the 1980s, and they had a translator that they made friends with and stayed in touch with. And this guy went on to become like an internet gazillionaire. So Randy bought him his first bicycle when he came to the United States to study, and it's just funny. You're like, oh wow, it's like twice I've listened to biographies. I'm like, oh, I've met this person or I know this person. So it's cool. So Bryce.
Oh, I got a pick. I have seen. I kept up with some of the promotional material for it because it kind of falls under the Cord Killers element, and I didn't love much of any of it. They put out a teaser, and the teaser didn't say anything, and then they put out a trailer, and the trailer was kind of all over the place. But I spent about an hour last night watching Everything Sucks, the new Netflix original, and it's nice and charming. It takes place in the 90s, and so there's a lot of over like, oh man. But
is there any affiliation with Everything is Terrible or
no.
Okay.
It's like a high school.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we watched the preview for this.
Yeah. So you get these hokey 90s moments of like, oh, Alanis Morissette's not being ironic, and Wonderwall. But there's a surprisingly complicated love story that is going on in there between these high schoolers, and I didn't think I would like it as much as I did. So if that sounds like something that you might be into, a kind of 90s high school romance sort of series, check it out. Everything sucks.
I
It's-
have a problem with this nostalgic stuff set during time periods where I'm sure I still have clothes I've not thrown out yet from that time period
Hoo
that I'm not
boy.
holding on to ironically.
They do this weird thing at the very beginning where it's kind of like establishing shots and whatever, and it doesn't set the best tone for the show because the high school that they go to is called Boring High School, and it makes you I because all these trailers and stuff were so bad. I thought, oh, is this going to be like an over the top like on its sleeves like weird parody satire thing? And no, it's just the high school's called Boring High School, and it's not goofy in that way.
I have not watched it because I refuse to admit that that
The
now
90s were a long time ago.
safe nostalgia is like literally my childhood because I was around the age that the characters are supposed to be in the show, and it's like I know at some point someone's gonna play Alice in Chains to sell me a boner pill, but I'm just not ready to go there yet.
I'm just like, I have adult clothes from that period. I have adult clothes. I could be an adult in that period, and I'm not cool with this. I'm not comfortable with it. Like I threw out, like I was cleaning out my house in Florida, and like maybe a year ago, whatever, I threw away a suit that like I graduated high school in. Because you just have a suit, like I hardly wear a suit. I'll just put this in the closet. You go through like suit. Then one day I took the suit out. I'm like, this is
Ridiculous.
I'm not. I was keeping it not because one day this will be neat. I'm getting like, I just need to keep an extra suit. I'm like, I can't. This suit is like so out of fashion.
Yeah,
and out
you
of
would
style.
be wearing
I
a
would never wear
costume
it.
if you walked out in public
Yeah,
with that.
I'm like, oh man, I'm old. I'm old.
Well, you can relive the good old days with Everything Sucks. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm gonna go put on my Z Cavaricis. All right, guys, it's been after.
See ya.
Coolio. Oh, I didn't do a show out thing at the end of Weird Things. Oh well.
All right, guys, I gotta go get some food and then do the other show. I'll talk to you.
Hey man, that thing that he just said, he stole that from me.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I also
Bye.
am gonna go get some food and get ready for the show. Bye, everybody.
Hey, have you
What's
watched Counterpart?
No, not yet. Did you?
Yeah. Do you want to make an appointment and we'll just both be in the room and check it out before the show?
Yeah. You want to say like 4:35? Because I need to go get food.
Yeah, I'll do the same. I'll
Okay.
go grab a bite, and then 4:35 we'll be here. All right,
Cool.
works.
If you are, this is not getting good to anybody who's watching. You can't join us to watch Counterpart.
Yeah,
but
well, just know though that two gentlemen are gonna watch Counterpart together.
start watching Counterpart at 4:35 with us, and then just live tweet us
quietly
reaction.
know that we're watching too.
But we'll talk about it on Spoiler Time. All right. See you guys soon. Bye.